for our Monday late afternoon meeting of May 23rd, 2016, and we'll start with a mic check, please.
Here we go. Chair Goodine.
Here.
Vice Chair Hopkins.
Here.
Howard Whittash.
Here.
Kevin Moore.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And we'll start, as we always do, with public comment. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak on an item not on today's agenda, please come forward. Seeing no one, we'll...
We have one.
We do have one brave volunteer.
Get here in time to submit a request to speak form. What I'd like to speak about is not on the agenda, and yet it's everywhere on the agenda. I'd like to make some general comment about the architecture, particularly after last meeting.
Did you give your name, Sheila?
Oh, I'm sorry, Sheila Lodge, speaking as an individual. The discussion about the difficulty of achieving something that feels like Santa Barbara, but is still contemporary and so on. So just from the Santa Barbara Design Guidelines for the ABR, purpose to protect and preserve the natural and historical charm and beauty of the city and its aesthetic appeal. Another quote, Santa Barbara's distinctive architecture is a regional style with a Mediterranean influence. Again, this is under the ABR guidelines. Reflects the city historic past and complements its setting in the natural environment. The successful adaptation of these architectural forms with ingenious variations to meet modern needs has resulted in the achievement of an architectural harmony that distinguishes Santa Barbara from other cities, which is something that I certainly feel is true. And I did a little poking around on Maps Google to find some examples of Mediterranean architecture, which feels to me very contemporary as well. That's a village in Spain, in Andalusia. Again, it has a contemporary, timeless, and elegant feel, and yet those buildings could possibly be hundreds of years old. This is the island of Santorini, which again you've got very cubistic forms, again very elegant, very very fitting to Mediterranean style and Santa Barbara's architectural history. This is a project by Irving Gill, California architect. I think he died in the 1930s or 40s, but that's a project in Santa Monica. Another example of a contemporary, timeless design that also reflects the Mediterranean heritage. This is let's see, I should show you. This is a house on Padaro Lane, which is, again, feels very contemporary, but again, to me, has the elements of Mediterranean design. There's some more shots of it. I could not find out who the architect was for that, I'm sorry. And then this is a house at 411 East Carrillo, and that is where Ellen Bildston and her partner. So it can be done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Bringing in the examples especially.
Would you like to keep those? You're welcome to, if you want to, or I can take them away.
I wouldn't mind keeping them, personally. Do you mind?
No, that's fine. I can always print out more.
Thank you, Sheila.
I'll keep it in my ABR binder. Thanks very much, Sheila.
Should I fill out a form? No, we don't know. We know who you are.
We know where to find you. All right. So we'll close public comment and go on to the approval of the minutes for the Architectural Board of Review for April 25th. And we've reviewed all the items on that on those minutes, except for the last one. And we asked board members to review the video from that meeting and to in order to help us summarize the comments that were made, because it's a large and important project, and there was some confusion, I think, in the minutes as recorded, written as written. So Howard, do you want to start with what your comments were? And we'll just go down the line.
This is number 7, or is this beginning
Yes.
at the beginning?
Number 7. Number 7 only.
I see. And just understand something. This is the 3891. Where are we here?
Yeah, 3891 State Street. This
Is that the corner?
It was handed out to us. Did you get? Yeah, yes, it is that corner project, Lacumba and State. And we're looking at the summary of the board comments at the bottom. We could start with Scott and then work towards you if you're not ready.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't have any changes per se.
Okay. So I did have very specific comments that differed from the first comment, and I don't know where these are where these might be repeated elsewhere. I didn't study what my comments actually were in relation to the comments that are given here, but I can tell you what my comments were. They were, number 1, that the mass, bulk, and scale is not acceptable as designed, that the uniformity of the 4th-story roof line along State Street is not acceptable as designed, that the contemporary design concept needs to fit more within the Santa Barbara tradition. And this does not mean gable end roofs or mission tile, but would include changes to the massing and fenestration. And then also part of that same comment is simply shifting colors or finished materials would not be adequate.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So what are you reading from?
I'm reading from notes that I took after looking at
Which are
watching the
different than
video.
these? Different than these?
Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
question. So I understand the point of trying to coalesce and give very specific feedback as far as the minutes go.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously there's some varying opinions.
Exactly.
So how do we give a one
Well,
direction?
well, fortunately on this project, we were not required to give a consensus view.
Right.
We were just commenting.
Okay.
But I just felt like there should be an accurate representation of the comments made by all of us, right? Not just a few. Yeah.
So in the past, we've used words like a majority of the board or some members. So in the case of the size, bulk, and scale,
Mm-hmm.
some board members found the concept, scale, and style acceptable.
Yeah.
Is that a majority or is that some?
Doesn't matter in this
It was some. We didn't take a vote, and we weren't asked to take a vote.
Okay, so based on what you read about your notes,
Mm-hmm.
I concur with this and I concur with your notes, so I'm kind of mixed up.
Well, what I had asked board members to do via email and also in our last meeting was to review the videotape, because we want to have an accurate representation of what was said, not what we're thinking now, but what was actually said at the meeting.
Right.
And so I asked board members to review the videotape and to summarize their own comments and to make sure that they were represented here, or if these need to be revised in some way. So I'm not trying to summarize what other board members said. I'm just trying to summarize what I said, because I know they weren't accurately represented in these comments. So if you still feel you're not ready to do that, then we could table it for another time again. Probably not, actually. We probably shouldn't. We should just conclude it today.
Well, the applicant is here today, so we're getting another crack at it. So
Is this item on our
Oh,
agenda
not-
today?
Oh, sorry, different agenda item, pardon me.
Not this project,
Right.
no.
No, this project is not on our
Yeah.
agenda.
No.
I did not review the tape as you instructed.
Okay.
I'm just too
Yep.
busy.
Yep.
But I would like to. So if it's okay with consensus here, I'd like to allow time for that. I think this is important for us to agree to disagree about certain matters. So this applicant knows where we fall.
Yeah,
And I think the issues that are brought up by the project are vital. They're pretty important
yes,
going forward. Not this project, but a lot of others.
right.
Not only this project.
Okay, so we could table it again for next time, I guess.
It might be,
We do an email response.
I think we can't email a response outside of the public sphere. It all has to be here at the board meeting. It may be more beneficial to have one or two more board members present.
I think for that reason, it would be good to wait.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll table it then for next time. And we'll go on to the approval of the minutes for May 9th. And we'll take,
Maybe
yes?
you should make a motion to table the item, under item B, approval of the minutes of April. So
Okay.
that was April 25th, so if you could just table that.
Howard made that motion, and I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries,
Okay,
unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, May 9th, we're taking comments from board members on item 1 or 2. And I have a couple comments on item 2. Under the motion number 3. Are we ready for some comments? Under the motion number 3, delete to each side. And number 6, delete craftsman detailing and including. Replace including with and or.
Which item is that?
This
On the
is
motion?
item 2, under the motion number 6. Delete craftsman detailing. I don't think we asked for craftsman detailing. We talked about wood siding instead of stucco and some other,
I'm sorry, what item are you on?
number 2,
Oh, number
page
2.
3. Item 2, number
I
6.
get it.
I also don't know that we asked for more hardscape details. Okay. And I would, okay, believe that. Number 3, item 3, under the motion number 6, I have a comment. It should read, restudy the northeast corner elevation as it faces the park to be more consonant
Or consistent.
or consistent. That's even a better word, consistent. And then the partial sentence that follows after IE in that motion is already stated in number 5, so I would just cross that out, everything after IE, cross that out. Comments from other board members on any of the other items on the,
Clarify number 9, I believe. Study the design of the low site wall at the street elevation, I believe, is specific.
okay.
Are you deleting the part about the entrance, emphasizing the entrance?
Well, it's stated in number 5.
Oh, I see. All right, fine.
Any other comments on the minutes? Okay, so we need a motion and a second to approve the minutes for May 9th.
I move. So moved.
Howard,
I'm just going to abstain, I wasn't there.
Second.
seconded by Kevin. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, right? And one abstention? Or two abstentions? No, just one. One abstention. Consent calendar for May 16th.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item A, 1419 De La Vina Street was final approval with the condition. Item B, 520 East Yananali Street, final approval with condition. Item C, 213 West Coda Street was continued 1 week. Item D, 3771 State Street was not reviewed on consent. Item E, 525 East Yananali Street, final approval with a request. Item F, 2900 block of De La Vina, final approval as submitted. And those were reviewed by Howard, Board Member Witosh only.
Okay, we need a first and a second.
First?
Scott
Second.
and Kevin, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And the consent calendar for today, please.
The 23rd was item A, 604 East Coda Street, was granted final approval with condition. Item B, 213 West Coda Street was continued 1 week. And item C, 3714 Mariana Way, was granted project design and final approval with condition. And the first item was reviewed by Board Members Miller and Witosh, and the second and third items were reviewed by Witosh only.
Okay, thank you, Susan. So we need a first and a second, please.
First.
Scott. Seconded by Kevin, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I guess I can take an action on the minutes, I mean, the
Yes,
consent, right?
yes, you can, yes.
I
Mhm,
was a
yep.
little inhibited there.
Item 1, 414 and 420 East. I'm sorry, no, that's right.
Quick
Yeah,
announcement. Board Member Kung may be absent, and Board Member, well, it looks like he is, and Board Member Fitzgerald Tripp will be absent. And I did not realize that Board Member Miller wouldn't be here. Anyway, maybe she'll just come in late.
Okay,
That's all I have.
thanks.
I have a quick announcement.
Yes, Scott.
I believe is it the Planning Commission is revisiting the AUD program on next Tuesday, tomorrow. Is it the City Council? Pardon me, City Council. And I don't know if we, as a board, want to give feedback or comment on any of the proceedings.
What time is that?
I think it starts at 3 o'clock, but who knows when? It may be 4:30 by the time speakers speak.
It's an agendized item,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts at 3.
Mm-hmm. The City Council meeting starts at 3. I'm not sure what time it's agendized for.
Okay.
I'm happy to go speak for the board. I don't know that we have any definitive leanings or recommendations as a board, per se.
Well, I'm going to try and make that as well.
Okay.
So, but I do appreciate you being willing to
Yeah.
attend. I think it is important. I think we should have some feedback, some input, along with the rest of the community.
Okay, so I'll see you there.
Thanks for announcing that. Subcommittee reports. Okay. Item 1, 414, 420 East Carrillo. This is a AUD project. Mixed use. And the proposal includes a voluntary lot merger of 414 and 420 East Carrillo Street, the demolition of a 4,903 square foot building at 414 East Carrillo, and the construction of a new 4-story mixed-use building, including 21 residential rental apartments and a 1,000 square foot addition of commercial floor area. An existing 11,700 square foot commercial building will be maintained. Residential unit mix will include 6 studio units, 6 one-bedroom units, and 9 two-bedroom units, and an average size of 768 square feet. Proposed density on the combined parcels, totaling 34,981 square feet, will be 27 dwelling units per acre, which is the maximum allowed on a parcel with a general plan land use designation of commercial, medium, high residential use, which allows 15 to 27 dwelling units per acre. There will be a total of 57 parking spaces, including 37 in a ground floor parking garage and 20 uncovered spaces in a surface lot. And there's 3,145 square feet of landscaping. So a staff hearing officer review is requested for a zoning modification to provide less than the required number of parking spaces, and a shared parking analysis will be provided. It's comments only. Welcome.
Okay. Mark Kirkhart, Principal Design Architects.
Melissa Turner, project manager.
Good afternoon, Matt Bodecker, one of the family members, the owners of the building.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so this project is up on Upper Carrillo just before it hits Olive Street. This building was built actually by an architect for a principal use as his architectural office is Chuck Schmant, the old Schmant and Lenbeck fame from way back when. So this is the building. You might recognize that it's pretty much the entire thing is brick with kind of heavy timber, wood beam ceilings and open exposed wood on the interior. So that's the project site. We've got some adjacent. There's a project around the corner that we did. And several other photos of the block. Once again, this is that one block that if you really took a count of all the various types of architecture there, it's predominantly mid-century modern, including the building that's the old state building there, which is with the big parking lot beside it.
Just so you know, board members were requested to do a site visit before
Okay,
today's
great.
meeting.
So you guys have been up there?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So here's the site plan. The voluntary merger is to, this is all under one ownership now, but it's to eliminate this property line so that the whole thing will be one property, which allows us to use the entire site to project the density of the AUD units. This is the building that we're proposing to remove. So we got to go to the site plan.
That's the vet's office? is that
Correct.
right? Okay.
Correct. So this is turned to fit on the sheet here, but anyway, so here's, oh yeah, I'm a little bit confused. Carrillo's right. Yeah, Carrillo. Let me go back to this other one. This tells the story better. So there's about a story of level change across Carrillo right here, so that there's actually tuck under parking that you saw along this edge. So this is a surface parking lot that's up higher, and this will connect across the courtyard into this courtyard, which is the residential, where the residential units start. If you go back under this driveway, you'll be basically going under a tunnel, if you will, over this courtyard down below to get back to the rear parking lot that's basically on grade. So these two, where the existing building is, that we're removing it, and back here in the back is an existing surface parking lot. So we're basically, these two parking areas are on the surface. And when you take in total between the tuck under parking and these two lots and the surface lot, that's where you get to the total of 57 spaces. And we are proposing a small commercial use right here on the street. It's just a little over 1,000 square feet. So once again, this is up one level, and we have 3 studios here facing Carrillo, and then 2 one-bedrooms in the rear. And then after you go into this, you go on tuck underneath there, and we've got 3 two-bedroom units on the one level above the podium. So we have a nice kind of a podium courtyard here, as well as here, that serves those units. And the bicycle parking is back on the ground floor here. So when you come down underneath of this garage, you can come over here and get into a stacked bicycle parking. We have to have one bike parking space for every unit. Okay. So as you go up, there's 2 levels of studios on top of the commercial here on Carrillo. So this is 3 stories. When you get back to here, we've added one more level, so this is 3 stories on top of the garage. But if you recall, that garage is almost like a subterranean garage here because it's one level down from this level. Back here in the very back part of the property, we're proposing to go 3 levels on top of the parking structure. So that this would be a total of 4 levels above grade in the back. And this is that big giant parking lot, this state building from Canna Perdido. Yeah, this is the intermediate. Sorry, this is the level below, and then this is the existing office building here, which is to remain.
This would be north, right?
Correct.
Okay, I just noticed it was labeled as a south courtyard there. I wasn't sure why on a previous page. Just not a big deal. Never mind.
Yes, it's not real south, is it? It's a little more northwest. Yeah. So this gets up to the roof plans. So what we did in terms of the architectural approach was to try to do something that was very contextual with the existing building because we're very close to it. So, you'll see when we get through the materiality, we're proposing to skin the garages with a brick veneer so that it's similar to the existing brick building. And then we're introducing the heavy wood timbered roof on the kind of the uppermost portions of the roof. So brick around the base, and then wood with the wood timber, combination of plaster and wood timber roofs. As with the other projects, I think it's much better to look at this 3-dimensionally. These are the sections. You can see how we're talking about where we've 3 levels over the garage back here, and then 2 on Carrillo, and then 3 in the middle. So the existing building here is all shown kind of in white for massing, but you can see how you've got this one little complex of units up here in the front and another one in the rear of the property. Here's where the driveway tucks underneath of that courtyard. So that courtyard is basically level with this parking lot. And we visualize that courtyard being used by both the residents and by the people living in or working in the building. They can go out there and have their lunch or whatever and have great views of the Riviera. So it's kind of a combination mixed outdoor space. This shows how the building is basically 3 stories at the front, but when it gets back in the middle, it steps up a story. The street view. So the existing surface parking has the Santa Barbara stone walls, which we're beginning to introduce down here around in front of our building as well, with the brick on the lower portion on kind of the podium, and then a combination of wood siding and plaster with the heavy timber roofs. So this portion back here is the 4-story portion. This is 3 stories on the street. So you can see, this is kind of the classic layer cake where you're taking the tallest portion of the building and pushing it into the middle of the site. Here's a little closer view from the street.
Was that wood?
Commercial
Sorry,
space.
go back a second. The wood, I'm sorry, it's probably not wood. It's horizontal siding is, what did you say already?
It's either going to be wood or it's going to be a hardy siding of some sort.
And this is an elevator? Is that
That's
why
an
it's-
elevator,
okay.
correct. That's why it has the extra height, because it needs to get up to this level and it has to have the overrun.
Okay.
Yeah. And with a combination of plaster, we may introduce some, on some of this, we may introduce some natural cedar or something too. We haven't really gotten to the final decision on that, but we want it to be a textured, horizontal type siding.
And this is plaster back here? Is that-
Correct. Painted plaster, and then the brick veneer on the base with the timber roof. Just some more oblique views, aerial views, so you can get an idea how the massing works. And we did a photo montage from Cannon Perdido. So this is the State of California building.
Yes.
Here's the building on Hollis Street, and this is our proposed building. Once again, that's back probably 250 feet from the street. Comments from the peanut gallery?
I think so.
A view of the courtyard. And this is the space that's between the units. So the units are accessed from a from either the courtyard or from these elevated terraces. That's the small courtyard that's that's on the rear building, the one that's back in the middle of the site.
Okay. Just have.
Do you have any questions? Yeah.
Can I make a couple comments too
Yes,
after your question?
just one clarification. Was there a view looking this way, showing this building in relation to the new?
I don't think we have one from that way, but we can certainly do that with a photo montage next time.
Mark, can you just go back to maybe the street elevation on Carrillo, and if I can just kind of give you a little bit of what we tried to direct Mark on, just number one for the board to understand, we've been involved with this building since 1979, have owned it, and frankly, many buildings adjacent to it and down the street. We've, as a family, my dad bought that when I was 8 years old, and our real study, and we've looked at this over the years many times, we kicked off an architectural design with Mark and another group just to find out how we could take that 420 building and see if we could match it to the best of our ability. That's a very important building for us. It's funny, when we bought it in the 70s, it was a happening place. Then it kind of died out in the 2000s. We've never changed any of the furniture in there, and now it's sort of architecturally relevant again. And so for us, what the direction from the family is to make sure that we can bring apartments into downtown. That's important for us. It's important on a personal level as well. And then also be able to do the best job we can at tying in that 420 building. I think the 414 building ultimately doesn't have the max opportunity there, but the 420 building, we studied back and forth many times taking it down, and there was no chance we're going to do that as a family. So that's really been our marching orders to the designers, is to see that how we could do that, and we could put it in a place that that didn't have, there's other ways that you could probably do this. I think from a design side, and what we've felt with, we've never developed in Santa Barbara. We've been in town for this is 4 generations now, and this is an attempt at the family basically coming in and trying to add some value in the area. So
Okay. So when you mentioned, you're mentioning 2 different
the
buildings.
420,
This is the
yeah.
420.
The 420
and
that's
this is the 414.
Right.
Yeah.
So the 420 is where I office. It's where we've had our company for 40 years. And it's important for us to try to take some of that material and be sensitive to roof peak heights and pull it over to the apartment model. So, I wanted to say that in front of everyone. I think this isn't just a project for us. This is part of our life. So,
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
We've got quite a lot of public comment here, so we're going to
Make room for
open up public comment. Forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong. I'll do my best. James Iliano? Iliano. James Iliano.
Two minutes.
2 minutes. James Giuliano. I live on 929 Laguna Street on the corner of Laguna and Carrillo. And I'm here to just register as an individual, although I've spoken to several neighbors, and I'm here to register disapproval of this project on a couple of dimensions. And I think it's important that we do preserve the character of our neighborhoods. And when I look at the congestion that this will add to an intersection that is already very busy, to an intersection that is already a major walk-through for kids going to the high school, I think the traffic considerations are notable. Parking is when I have friends that come visit me, street parking is nightmarish today. This will only exacerbate that. The fact that they are asking for an exemption to the parking requirements concerns me even further, and I have to register strong disapproval to that. And the third is just the the profile of the skyline. And it's wonderful that they're considering the Riviera views for the people that are on that side of the Laguna. But what about us who now have sight lines to the beautiful natural view to the mountains? I think the city has done an admirable job of harmonizing architectural beauty with natural beauty, and I think this will mar that. I did not have time to, obviously, to see these renderings and proposals. And when I think about the character of the buildings that are around that neighborhood, I don't see, this may fit with the adjoining one, but I do not see how this fits with the character of the architectural character of the neighborhood at all, the Spanish type influence. So I strongly register a disapproval of this project on the congestion, on the parking, particularly the light of the exemption being asked for, on the marred sight lines, and for what I've seen at first pass without any kind of study, for what I do not think is architecturally harmonious with the neighborhood.
Thanks very much. So if you agree with the previous speaker, you don't have to necessarily repeat your comments, and you could just register your agreement. The next speaker is Paul Portney.
Hi, I'm Paul Portney, and thank you very much for the opportunity to appear. I am the president of the La Aldea Homeowners Association, which is the 5 townhouses that are at 929 Laguna. I happen to live in the end unit, Unit E, which is exactly on the corner of Laguna and Carrillo. And I have many of the same concerns that Jim Iuliano has. Living on the corner, I'm acutely aware of the traffic on Carrillo. And anything that will add significantly to the traffic or parking issues along Laguna and Carrillo is a big concern to me. Every morning I see kids skateboarding down the block from Garden toward Laguna on their way to the high school. And I've seen several near fatalities because the kids don't stop at the stop sign, and they're putting the trust in people who are going north or south on Laguna to stop. Like Jim, when we have people over to visit us in our place, it's very, very difficult for people to find places to park because, as you know better than we do, people who work downtown now start parking on Laguna Street and streets going out because there's inadequate parking downtown. Finally, and with deference to the people who've made the presentation earlier, I can tell you feel strongly about 420 East Carrillo. In my opinion, and I do not hold myself up as an architectural or urban planning expert, but in my opinion, there are 2 buildings in the sort of east downtown neighborhood which are inconsistent with almost the entirety of the rest of the neighborhood. One is the 420 building, which would be an attractive building to me if located someplace else, but I think it's inconsistent with the other buildings in that area. The other is that apartment building that has gone up at Olive and Canyon Perdido. I think they just don't stand out or stick together, cohere with the rest of the buildings in the neighborhood. We moved here 2 years ago because of the opportunity to look up into the beautiful mountains, and because downtown Santa Barbara, with the exception of State Street, appropriately so, is a relatively low-density downtown area. And to have something go up 4 stories between us and Olive Street, I think it's sort of inconsistent with what we were looking for when we moved here to Santa Barbara. I'm not opposed to development, and if this was a proposal to build condominiums or apartment buildings on the current footprint, no higher, I'm fine with that.
But time is up. If you could wrap up your comments.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very articulate. Kevin Finnegan. Finnegan.
Good Irish name.
And then let me just mention to other folks here who are here to comment, the modification for parking will be handled at the staff hearing officer level. So there'll be another public hearing, probably in a month or so, that will specifically take up that modification question. And if you notify staff, you'll get a notice when that hearing occurs, and public comment is also welcome at that time. Go ahead, sorry to interrupt.
I wanted to first thank you for your efforts here. I mean, you're really our last way to have some sort of reason come in and help the neighborhood. So we really appreciate the work that you're doing here. You know, I didn't see when I was looking for the shoehorn that they have that they're fitting this thing in. I'm sure that's in further pages, but you know, they talked about the tunnels that they had for the people to drive in, and then they talked about there's a little courtyard that the residents there can see the views, but there's going to be a handful of people that will be able to see the views versus there's dozens and dozens of people in the neighborhood who have a perfectly fine view before this building were to be built. The other thing I'd like to point out, because I walk that neighborhood with my dog almost every day, is this project is actually on a hill. So what you're talking about 4 levels is not to us 4 levels. It also goes up the hill substantially. So it's really a large obstacle to the view. Some people have been talking about the parking. This is also at the end of Carrillo towards the high school. So it's not downtown where maybe exemptions where if it's more of a business sort of situation would be appropriate. But this is more towards the residential, more towards the school. And so taking away parking in a residential neighborhood is a much bigger thing for us than when they have downtown, they have public parking. We have no recourse, another to walk further away. And again, I think some of the other people have mentioned it, so I'll be very brief on it, is it does not fit in with the character of the neighborhood. I think a mistake was made with the original plans, and to compound the mistake, to have more and more of going in the wrong direction at a very elevated level, I don't think makes sense. I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thanks very much.
you.
Kay Force.
Hello.
Hi.
I live in the neighborhood too, and I appreciate what you're trying to do. I'm opposed to the project. My first objection is the water issue. We're in an extreme drought, and to add 21 units when we don't have enough water now is it's not acceptable to me. The parking is an issue for me. And a 4.5-story building was just completed about a year or so ago at 915 Olive Street, which is in that same 4-block corridor, which was put in with not enough parking and et cetera that everyone else has said. That building that was put in at 915 Olive does not fit in with the neighborhood, just like this one doesn't fit in with our single-story bungalow neighborhood. And so I'm opposed to the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Hoffman.
Yeah. Just glance down every now and then. That's all right.
Well, thank you for taking the time to listen to our concerns. I live on 1012 Olive Street, so I own the properties 1012 and 1016 Olive, and it's 1920s bungalows. I'm already surrounded by condos on Rinconada. I have a condo building to the right, and now I'm going to have a condo building to the front as well. And I just feel, is it the policy that we, people living still in the bungalows that are the charm of Santa Barbara, should be made so uncomfortable that we want to get out there and leave our own homes that we owned, or our family owned for more than 60 years? I'm starting to feel claustrophobic with all these new condominiums going up, and I don't think the size is in proportion to the neighborhood. And I really would like you to consider that there are still a lot of bungalows left, and they make the charm of Santa Barbara, and we don't want to lose those. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. There is, oh, Suzanne Ward. Wood?
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I don't have too much else to add. I'm also opposed to the project. I live in the neighborhood on Olive Street. Pretty much everything everybody else has said, I totally agree with. Some of my specific concerns are about the drought. You know, we're being asked, and I just can't understand, and I know it's probably not even appropriate for you guys to address this. It's addressed somewhere else about all this new building going on, and in years past, they had a moratorium on building during droughts like this, so I don't understand that, first off, but that's probably another meeting I need to attend.
Right.
But the fact that we're losing green space, too, in our neighborhood with this project and the project on Olive Street that everybody's just been mentioning, the inside's all like cement courtyards, you know, there's no ground left for, you know, water to drain through. Everything is just being cemented over, and that really concerns me environmentally downtown. And also, I just want to point out that our neighborhood has a lot of low-income public housing already along Laguna and Olive, which I think is great. But I think, you know, maybe they need to spread it out into other neighborhoods, too, and not just our neighborhood to take all of the brunt of the apartment buildings and the low-income housing. So I think that's a consideration here. Maybe on the Upper East Side they can add some apartment buildings and condos, or in San Roque, and not just always our neighborhood. So
The city has designated certain areas of town that they consider more dense development appropriate. So that's part of the
and we've
part of the
already,
deal here.
you know, absorbed a lot of that, I think, a lot of the density. And as everybody pointed out, we've had a lot of traffic concerns with, there's a lot of kids in our neighborhood. And I saw a kid hit by a car speeding down the street just a couple of months ago. And it's happened a lot. There's another recent episode, because we are near schools and churches. It's a residential area. It's not a mixed business residential area, not really. I mean, a little further up it is, but that neighborhood is primarily residential. So I think we need to be concerned about all the families and the children that live there, and the amount of traffic and parking issues that we're having. So
Thanks for your
that's all I
comments.
have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bill Chiras.
Yeah, I thank you also for the opportunity to speak, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but I'm about to beat a dead horse. Perhaps it's common at these things that people who are coming to object as opposed to support projects, but I don't see too many people in support of the project so far who've come to comment. The other speakers have very eloquently voiced most, if not all, of my concerns. The primary ones are congestion, parking, obstructing the view, architectural harmony with surrounding buildings, which are normally Southern Spain, Andalusian, Moorish, Hispanic, Spanish in style. This is nothing like that. They're trying to make it harmonious with the existing building, but it sounds like, and it looks very much like the one that the same architect built at 901 to 915 Olive, which I've heard a lot of comments about the aesthetics, but none of them have been favorable, including from me. I think they're a monstrosity, not in keeping with the neighborhood. I don't find them appealing for in general, but particularly for Santa Barbara. And otherwise, I think, particularly Mr. Uilani, I believe, the first speaker, very articulately voiced my concerns, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Scott Ross.
Thank you for seeing me today. I live at 411 East Carrillo, just opposite the project, and we've moved here. We came to Santa Barbara about a year ago to escape the traffic and the madness that is Venice Beach in California. turns out that with the spine clinic and the veterinary clinic, there's very little parking on the street now, considering the 90-minute problems that we have on the opposite side of the street. So oftentimes I can't even park my car in front of my house. So the amount of traffic that would be added by this is really difficult. I think all of the other people spoke very highly and articulately about what my issues were as well. I'll go a little bit further. I was hoping to come down here and to find a different kind of building, maybe a Shelton building. I have to tell you, with all due respect, the architectural design is horrible. It feels like it's Culver City, and I escaped Culver City to come here to live in Santa Barbara, where things are beautiful. So I'm very much opposed to the project. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. So that concludes all the speaker slips I have. If there's anyone else that would like to speak. Okay, so we'll close public comment.
Thank you, Susan.
And we'll go to questions from the board. Scott.
Sure. Can you go to the back elevation back here? I guess the first question is, the existing grade, is it flush across here? Is there a retaining wall? Is this higher than that grade?
I think it's slightly above that elevation right there, but not much, pretty close to this level. Because you're driving, this thing drops down off of the hill just like this does from this side.
Okay. And so the proposed finished floor for this, where does the finished floor relate to the grade here? Do you have a section through there?
I have a section through there. You can see we're right here. So this is 33 here, and we're like 36.9 here. So there's an existing retaining wall in there, so we're like 3 or 4 feet above that.
So the finished floor is proposed to be 36 something,
Yeah.
almost 37?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's 33 and a half, so 37, 3 and a half, 3.5 feet roughly.
Yep.
Okay. And let's take a look at that back elevation real quick.
The back elevation that was the photo montage is this elevation.
Okay, so you can't see, this is hidden behind the...
It's hidden behind the State of California building here.
Okay. The montage that kind of shows...
4.6.
So you kind of see some of that here.
Yeah.
And then I noticed in the 3D view, this is rather large brick wall back there. So this is at railing height
Yeah.
at the top of that?
And this is right on this property line.
Gotcha, okay. And there's a parking lot behind the State of California building between
That's
these?
right.
Yeah.
That's all. This is actually a parking lot that comes off of the next block over and comes down in between this building. This is kind of a flag lot with most of this parking belongs to these buildings here.
And the finished floors of this garage and that garage are roughly the same? Or?
This one's actually down lower.
Down lower,
Yeah,
okay.
because that driveway continues to drop as it goes to the back.
Okay. And if you were to show a plate height from the finished floor of the garage up,
We usually have about 11 feet of floor to floor on the garage to make sure you have enough to keep your plumbing through it and still have your 8'2" clearance for your van ADA parking.
So above adjacent grade, it's roughly 3.5 feet.
This has existing grade that's kind of dropping down. If we go to that, the photo montage, we can see that everybody likes so much.
Back.
Okay, so that's building the back. This is the building in question.
Right, and there's some landscaping between there. There's kind of a bank that comes down to the parking level.
Okay. And then what would be the height of that wall if you just measured with the plumb line?
Well, that's 3.5 feet above the floor. That's probably another 10. So it's probably from grade. It's probably in the neighborhood of 14 feet.
Okay. And I'm going to jump around a little bit here. The roofs, what's the logic there? Are those exposed glue-lam beams or heavy timber on the inside?
Yes,
and so
they're
the
exposed on the
insulation's all in the upper portion of the roof there?
Yeah, it's primarily over the living rooms. We're putting it over the living spaces.
Okay. So the living space straddles...
In this case, there's a living room here and a bedroom next to it. So in here, it's going to go over the living room and one bedroom, living room and one bedroom.
Okay. Got it.
Just to give some articulation at the roof line.
Mm-hmm.
And then these are decks off the living spaces.
Okay, and then what's the plate height of the commercial space at the front?
It's based on the same, I mean, essentially, we're not raising it any more than we have to for the garage.
Okay.
So this is going to be from the finished floor of the garage to the finished floor of these first level units is going to be roughly 11 feet,
And
floor to
is it
floor.
Concrete podium construction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 12-inch slab or so. And you need that much so that you can get, you know, your traps on your plumbing and your sprinkler pipes and so forth, and still have 8'2" clearance. And then we're proposing 9-foot ceilings in the flats, 10-foot, roughly 10'3" floor to floor. That gives you enough to get all your soundproofing that you need between floors.
Okay.
Yeah, 10'3". And we've made it a little higher at those exposed timber roof lines.
And you have a, I guess that's kind of southwest elevation of the project, kind of looking up Korea to see the side of the. Do I see that somewhere?
We don't have that. I mean, we have
We don't have this elevation here?
We must, yeah, we have that.
That's it there, right?
Yeah, it's a building in front of it.
This is the two-story building in front of it.
Right.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Kevin?
Can we jump to the site plan real quick?
This is kind of the composite plan. We can go to level below. Because this is up a level. This is up a level.
Questions about the commercial space. Is there a use for that already, or what's the intent there? Just to have a mixed-use project?
Well, yeah, it's a space that we have available. We don't need to use it up for parking, and so we thought it'd be nice to have a small. It could be a small office. One time we talked about a little convenience store, but that seems to require a lot more parking, so we're probably not going to go there.
Yeah.
It's a 1,000-square-foot office. It's a lawyer's office.
Right. And so if we go up from there, maybe it's best to look at that section. Where are we setting back from above that commercial space?
Pardon me?
As we move up in levels from there, how are we, as far as relationship to the street, where are we set back from as we move up?
I don't think you do. I think it's right over the top.
Right, but this is this is a 5-foot setback to that, and then we have we're showing them cantilevering out 3 feet. Is that your question?
Yeah, as we move up, I just wanted to.
So if you wanted that, I think that shows the best in the 3D view of the street view. Like this one. So this is a 5-foot. This is set back 5 feet, and these are sticking out at a couple of feet. And that's the commercial space, obviously.
That's about existing right there, I would think, right?
What's that?
Something like that about the existing building height.
Roughly. Yeah, the existing building is roughly that height. It's kind of a high-ish one-story building.
Okay. That's really all my questions.
Okay. Howard?
Could you please walk me through the vehicular entrance parking, not parking, but circulation from West Korea? I'm a little confused as to how cars get in and out of the property.
Okay. Mike, Howard?
Is your microphone on?
Yes.
But
So essentially, there's 2 driveways.
What page are you on?
I'm on 101, A101.
101.
This is the lower level. So as we mentioned, the street is rising as it goes up towards Olive. So this is the lower driveway. It's the location of the existing driveway when you go in there right now, and it has tuck under parking along the whole left edge. And in that existing, there's also perpendicular parking against the right side where the existing building is. So it's parking again. There's double loaded parking here.
currently.
And you go here and you continue, this continues to drop down till you get to this lower lot in the back. So we're basically taking that lower lot and creating another garage there.
In this plan, where is Carrillo Street?
The top.
Top of the page.
This is Carrillo Street.
Correct. Okay, sorry about that. We should label that. But yes.
Okay, so coming in from Carrillo, I get it. Okay.
Then this one, you continue up Carrillo a little further. There's another driveway that goes into that existing surface lot. That's an existing surface lot. And that pretty much stays like it is. I think we've restriped it a little bit, but it stays where it is. And that is basically level. That's the same height as this deck here. So this is basically one floor above the parking down here. It's by one story. So you can actually park here and walk through this courtyard into the courtyard, into the stairs to go up to access these units.
Thank you. Those are my questions. I'm going to have more questions, but I can't think of them all right now.
Okay. Well, thanks, probably all of us. What is the parking analysis? What is it that you're supposed to provide and what you're actually providing?
Well, the ordinance requires, it's really only relates to the commercial space, and the ordinance requires 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. And I don't know whether you guys have ever done any projects where you've had a parking modification, that if you talk to Associated Transportation Engineers and you look at the ATE standards across the country or whatever for office use, will not be able to be changed from an office use. A professional office is 2.84 spaces per 1,000 is what the demand is. The demand of office space, as opposed to 4 versus 4.
It's related to the commercial space.
Right.
And you're providing 2 instead of 4? Is that what you're providing?
2.84.
2.8 instead of 4 spaces.
Correct. Okay. And then, in addition to that, you have the shared use situation going, which is the fact that most people that live in these, a good share of the people that live in these that are parking in their 1 space per unit are going to be gone to work during the day, at which time you have the shared parking that the office gets to use. Mm-hmm. And then in the evenings, when no one's in the office and the people come home, there's excess parking for the people to use in the evenings and on weekends when the office does not have people working in it.
Okay.
To add to that, the residential basically has right now 26 parking spaces for 21 units, but then has all of the excess of the commercial parking available. So a total of 57 spaces. So during weekends or evenings when they have guests visiting, there's an excess of parking available to them when the businesses are closed.
So you're saying they'll park in this lot?
They can park in that lot. They can park in the tuck under parking. There will be a reciprocal parking. I mean, at this point, the lot will be merged, so there is no reciprocal parking agreement. But in essence, for those who were concerned about the neighborhood being flooded with parking, there would be an excess of 30 some odd spaces on this project.
So this
for
is one
guests.
parcel, is that right?
This is one parcel.
Correct. It will be merged into one parcel.
Okay.
And I should know this, but the commercial square footage currently on this parcel is how much?
11,700 square feet.
Okay, and the parking for that is adequate for that commercial space?
It is. It is actually less than that. We conducted a survey of how many spaces are utilized between 414 and 420, and it's closer to the neighborhood of 40 spaces instead of the 57 that we're proposing.
You mean the square footage of the commercial and its requirement is closer to 40, or it is 40?
It's, I think, 44 spaces based on the demand survey that was conducted on site.
The demand
so
survey, not what's required by zoning ordinance.
It's actually even less than what the ITE standards are suggesting. It's actually 2.65 spaces per 1,000 square feet instead of 2.84 that the ITE rates are suggested.
This will all be taken up when we go.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just trying to get the basic picture.
That's the basic picture.
We think
it's a combination of the shared use, and we think the demand for professional office is less than the 4 per 1,000 that the zoning ordinance calls for.
Okay. All right.
Just further clarification.
Go ahead, Howard.
So the existing 11,700 square foot building, which is the Schmatt building, has its own parking.
Yes.
Is that parking proposed to be retained for that building?
Well, the surface lot will be retained for the building. That's the surface lot.
Plus the tuck under.
But there's also tuck under parking here that would be used by the office. And then we're going to assign 1 parking space per unit for the parking for the residential units, and the balance, the difference between will be available as shared parking.
But it sounds.
So
go ahead.
The 4,903 square foot building at 414 is being demolished. Where is its parking? Is there a credit there? What's that building? Is that a commercial building?
That parking goes away and it gets replaced by the residential units with this 1,000 square foot.
So commercial building being replaced by residential.
Correct. And a small amount of commercial also.
Which requires far less parking, 1 per unit versus 4 per 1,000 square feet.
So the parking on this property, the two properties merged, is at the same or less than what it is now? Or is there more parking?
Be more
You
parking.
say that 40 goes to 57.
Yes, there'll be more
So an
parking.
increase of 17.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Since we are required to comment on the modification and its aesthetic impact, we kind of need to be clear about that. Okay, so comments from the board. Scott?
Let's start with the kind of that perspective along Korea Street. I'll look at some particulars and I'll comment overall.
There's the aerial one.
That's a great one there. So at first blush, I wonder if the brick is really the appropriate material on Korea Street. I know it relates to the project that's kind of interior to the lot, and it seems cohesive unto itself. But the kind of large expanse of the brick wall, I'm just questioning whether that really makes sense on Korea Street, and maybe another material may be more appropriate. I like the use of the flagstone a lot. I like the planters. Don't mind necessarily the kind of storefront. The brick feels like it. I understand why it's there. It relates to the building around the corner and to the kind of other internal aspects of the site, but it feels odd there. There's something slightly odd to my eye about the heavy timber of the roof elements as well. I know that it opens up and gets some great interior beams in the unit, but it feels just lacks some nuance that you would expect. I'm not articulating this well. It feels, they just feel a little clunky on the roof. They place too much heaviness and emphasis up on the roof. As far as the overall partie in this elevation, I understand stylistically it's different than the neighborhood, but I think there's elements that do relate to the neighborhood, and there are plenty of board and bat cottages in the neighborhoods. I don't mind the horizontal siding. I don't mind the way it's articulated with the 3 elements. I think that breaks down the scale quite a bit. Moving on to the other elevations, have some concerns. Particularly this elevation. I find it, it's unfortunate that there's a added extra height between this grade and the finished floor. So it makes it feel unnaturally tall. And I don't think the roof elements are enough to kind of break down the boxiness of it. There's some clever things done to kind of hide the fact that you have a large parking garage and you're above grade, kind of bringing these down. But it doesn't have, it doesn't feel that it's nuanced enough or there's enough articulation, and it feels very tall and very boxy to my eye. This other elevation is less of a concern because it's really mid-block, it's interior. I know this is pushed way back, and I'm judging it just from this perspective, but it feels tall and boxy to my eye. In terms of the overall massing of the project, I think there's some good things happening. Let's go back to, is there another 3D view? Kind of an overhead? I mean, I like the fact that many of the 4-story masses are kind of interior to the block. That's kind of where they want to be. I don't think you'll perceive this as too tall coming from Carrillo. This kind of 2-story brick wall, I know it's in the middle of a lot, in a parking lot, feels oppressively tall. Maybe there's a way to set that back and get some bamboo or what have you, kind of breaking up the visual scale of that. Again, these 4-story elements, I think, are a big concern. And they're very, very far set back, but they do appear kind of boxy. This element, I think, is kind of a non-issue. It's really kind of the height and boxiness of these, and then the brick and some of the detailing along Carrillo feel at odds to me. I like the fact that the courtyards connect and the notion of overflow parking. Everything else, I think, has the potential of working. There's some elements that are problematic, very problematic, this back elevation in particular. Those are my comments.
Okay, thanks. Kevin.
Which elevation is that?
What's that?
Oh,
East. We'll give you a chance to,
Okay.
we need to go through the
Yeah,
comments.
sorry.
Kevin.
Okay. I have a lot of very similar concerns as Scott did. I guess my initial reaction, especially the Carrillo elevation, is the brick it's a big element in that elevation. I'm not sure that it's the right material, especially in relationship to the sandstone walls that you have going on there. And I think that big, long expanse of brick, I don't know that it's doing you any favors because it's just making the project seem larger and bigger and wider. So perhaps there's another way of handling that. And then I asked earlier about the commercial space because it seems like it's sort of it's 1,000 square feet. It seems like that's also potentially driving the height of your building up, especially on the Carrillo itself. So maybe there's a way to either reconfigure that, or maybe it's not worthwhile having in the project. Maybe that's an opportunity to bring some of the mass and scale down on the street.
Which was that?
The
Commercial space.
The commercial
space. Oh, I see.
Along Carrillo. As far as the massing further in the site, I think maybe there's some ways to chip away at it and reduce some of that height. I do appreciate the fact that you're trying to wedding cake that and bring it in. I think that's the right move. Let's see, what else? And I think just my main reaction is that this perspective view, kind of looking up at these three units, I think if there's a way to reduce the visual impact to the street by either varying the outdoor space, maybe there's a way that a balcony can stretch across and take some of that mass away, and so you have a little bit more open space on the street up there. And the beams, I think if the beams weren't, I don't know that the beams are contributing to the overall lightness of the project. They seem heavy and really, really, really heavy, and I think your roof section is going to get pretty thick. I mean, what do you think that above the beam section is? You're getting R30.
Do a combination of rigid and bat.
Yeah,
we understand.
Yeah.
But that whole idea was lifted from the existing building.
Sure.
The existing building has the same condition, and so once again, our approach, given what our client was asking for, was to basically have this become a total complex.
I understand. Okay.
So that's where that came from.
Okay. Well, perhaps there's a way, rather than looking at that as an example, maybe there's a way of pulling from other areas in the neighborhood and lightening that a little bit. Maybe that would contribute to the style being a little bit more appropriate and in conjunction with its neighbors. The overall style, I think it's fine. I think with some tuning, it could be a little bit more integrated into the neighborhood. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Howard.
I agree with pretty much what everyone else has already said. I have a couple thoughts that I think that the brick and the stone and these other textures that are proliferating in the project are going to be kind of a challenge. And it would be my comment, my opinion, that choose one and run it throughout, or go to a third and do something totally different. I do think that this elevation this is, I believe, Carrillo Street. Yes. I think that's overwhelming. I think that should be reduced. The other thing that comment that I have about your project, and that has to do with the land planner, is that you have this topography that goes from a low point at Carrillo Street and then goes up into a kind of a gentle hill to the other side. And that topography is not reflected in your building massing, and it could be. And it would help a lot to modulate exaggerate the height of your building by maybe having higher elements on higher ground, but not 4 stories, and coming down to, say, 2 stories on the lower, and you would get some air, light, and less feeling of congestion on the site. This building...
Howard, I don't know if the applicant and the architect understood that comment, but I didn't understand that
Which
comment.
part of that?
Well, you said that the grade rises from Carrillo, and actually it drops from Carrillo.
I'm sorry, the other way.
Oh, okay.
It drops, but I would.
So the high point is at Carrillo.
Looking at the other side of the street.
At the driveway entrance, that's the high point.
Yes.
And it drops down.
Yeah.
And they put the larger elements in the dropped down areas. So I'm not sure what you're saying to make the building taller back there, or
I think actually for the buildings on the high ground to be able to see over the buildings in the low ground would be the reason to modulate the heights of buildings based on the topography.
So can you point to an elevation, say it's okay for it to be higher here and lower there?
I understand what Howard's suggesting. He's suggesting that these buildings in the back be a little lower so the buildings in the high end can see over the top.
So, for example, this building I think is too high. So, and then this building is the same height. So I would start lowering, and lowering so that you get kind of a building mass that follows the landscape rather than trying to maintain a level top roof line. I agree that the roof timbers are a little heavy, but one thought that I had about this is that architecture has something, I thought when I saw this, San Francisco. It's what they're doing now in San Francisco. And the massing and the volumes and projected volumes and so forth sounds trite, but if you were to just make this all stucco and allow the projection of forms, the recession of forms, the reveals, and so forth to create shade and shadow, it would simplify it. It would be much more Santa Barbara, and you would still get the same building. But I would invite you to study that. I know that this may belong in some other place where you have more of a trend toward the modern, the more contemporary, like Upper State Street. But I think this might look very interesting if it was just fewer materials. Howard.
Okay. Thanks, Howard. Well, I differ from most of those comments. I've always admired this brick and wood building in the back. I think it's a handsome building, and it has it has contemporary elements in its massing, but it also has very traditional elements with the brick and the wood, exposed wood beams and so on. And to me, I felt like, yeah, this is a nice way to pick up that theme and to draw the corner together and create something that goes along with what I consider to be a nice building. I also think that in general, that the approach in terms of the massing of the buildings is the correct one, that you put the lower elements at the front of the street, and where the property drops down, you put the higher elements, and they're also facing in the very back on the east elevation, they're facing that parking lot, which is quite large. And I think that's, to me, although I I might make other objections to the other development that was done on the corner at the State Building. But to me, that parking lot elevation is very acceptable because of, it's nicely articulated and it faces a very, very large parking lot. So it's really not, oppressive to the pedestrian unless you're, going to your parked car way out there in the parking lot. So, And I can see Scott's point about that east elevation, working with it, maybe bringing it down some in parts so it's not so boxy. I think that's a good comment. I also do feel, as others have mentioned, that the impact at the street here is too heavy. That, you're set back 5 feet at this wall, but then you're coming out 2 and you're coming out 3. That, I think, in a neighborhood which is mixed as this is, that to push that back a bit instead of pushing forward to the street is going to help you. It's going to make it more acceptable massing-wise. But I feel very strongly that maybe there could be some refinements to the way the brick is used. Maybe that wall could be lowered and there could be some open railing there so it's not so massive. But in general, I think the brick is, in fact, I would suggest maybe one of these towers is brick as well to tie in with what's happening with that back building. I think there should be more brick. But that's my view. And I have no idea how to summarize all those comments.
I'll try taking a stab at a motion. Does the applicant want to make a few comments before that motion? Or?
Well, I think on the material, I was just trying to have you maybe to have this wall pull down and maybe continue with Santa Barbara stone is an easy deal. I think there's more cost in obviously pulling materials in like brick versus going back to a stucco or to a plaster. I think we want to be careful with that. And I do respect the comment about breaking it up, but there's also a lot of costs that we're committing to on material facing here that are in an aesthetic attempt. I think there's different views of what good aesthetics is, but on your rock element, as I look at it, maybe adding a little more to that because they can work together, brick and stone, very easily, and wood. Those are your elements. So I like the idea. That was my only one for you.
Thank you. I'm going to take a stab at a motion here. Item number 1, and I know Kirk is in the minority here. The majority of the board finds that the brick element on Carrillo Street is not appropriate at this site, and alternative materials should be explored. Number 2, I think I agree with others who said that a greater setback of perhaps of the roofs and the studio cantilevers might be explored by the applicant along Carrillo Street. Item number 3, study the massing of the rear units facing the parking lot. What's that back street?
It's really Can
Canyon Perdido parking lot?
It's really south.
South.
In our what we do with the 45 degrees, we consider that south.
Okay.
The ocean.
I'll go with that, south. Find ways to break up the massing and the apparent boxiness of that elevation. Study the roof assemblies and consider decreasing the heaviness of the beam elements. Let's see. In general, others may differ with me here. In general, the massing along Carrillo Street is good or acceptable. The board appreciates the 4-story elements tucked into the site and the 3-story elements on Carrillo Street. I think the general circulation of the parking is acceptable. and I'm sure others are going to want to add to that motion.
Under discussion.
You want to second it?
Second it, and then...
Then you can go under discussion and add things to it if you want.
I want to edit.
Well, yeah, you can add, you can propose edits, but we need
Okay.
a seconder.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Under discussion. You mentioned that the Carrillo Street elevation, the mass was acceptable. Is that-
Yes. The others feel differently.
I felt differently.
And you do as well? Good.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, we'll strike that. The Korea Street massing needs work. It's not acceptable as designed. And I'm not going to expound on the various reasons, but I think you get the general sense of it. Any other edits?
It's good for
So you're okay with the massing for the project running essentially level
Well, it-
over a
doesn't.
sloping slide?
My understanding is that it doesn't do that, Howard. That, maybe Mark can show us what's happening.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
If you look at 201, it's pretty level.
The podium is the same height throughout, right?
The south podium is slightly lower than the one on Carrillo. But you can see, I mean, more or less, because this one, there's the height limit based on the, taking the grade there and just moving it up 45 feet. So Howard's right, it's pretty much, they're fairly close, other than the one on Carrillo is down. We're low by a story there, and then these are more or less the same height as it currently is designed.
Kevin, do you want to add anything else to the motion?
Does anyone else feel that, or am I the only one?
I think you're alone
I'm alone?
on that issue.
And if you look at it from where the state building is.
Sir, public comment is closed at the moment. Sorry.
Have some respect.
So your concern, Howard, is that it's too tall on the Canyon Perdido side?
Well, certainly on the Canyon Perdido side, yes. I think that the building height should be adjusted to follow contours instead of putting the higher building in the lower, just to fill up the lower part of the site. I just think it does block views from other sites, and it blocks views from within itself of surrounding areas. So that's views means air and light and all the rest. So I just think that in terms of massing, this is going to be a very not congested, but highly dense, urban, almost an urban experience in this. The idea of natural landscape is gone.
Yes.
So I think that that's a comment. I feel that comment is, if that comment stays in the motion, maybe the applicant will look at it. And also about the building massing, and also about the Carrillo Street elevations, which I think has already been addressed.
So would it be fair to summarize your comment into two comments? One has to do with modulating the roof lines to fit more with the contours, existing contours. And the second one is provide more landscaping and open space.
Yes. Less hardscape.
Do you want to include those in your motion or not?
Question for the applicant quickly. What is the setback from the property line to the face of this building, or even the cantilevered portion?
4 feet, maybe. It's on here.
This looks like you're
What does it say there?
6 feet to the furthest back,
Yeah.
so about 5, 4.5 or something.
Yep. There's no requirement there for setback, but we have it mostly pulled back so we can have windows on it.
Yeah.
So you can have your percentage of open, unprotected openings.
There's one more comment that I have that was not addressed. I feel that this architecture is appropriate for the corner of State and La Cumbra, where it's a freeway in and out of the city, and it's, a big gateway entrance to the city. But this is really down, it's almost adjacent to the EPV and there are a lot of Santa Barbara style buildings in the area, the neighborhood. It's been mentioned that there are also a lot of craftsman and other cottage style buildings, residential buildings. But I think that I would like to ask the applicant to look at a way of making this less of a, what was the name of this part of Los Angeles that was mentioned? Culver City. Less Culver City, more Santa Barbara. If I have to go into that, I will. But I think
we should leave the Culver City out of it. We should leave Culver City out of it.
Yeah, take the Culver City out of it.
Yeah. So you want it to fit more within the Santa Barbara neighborhood and city context.
I think in this neighborhood, it's appropriate. Even though Chuck Schmant's building, and I work for Chuck Schmant, and it's a lovely building, but it's kind of, it's dated. It had its run. It's very nice, but it's dated. And
Okay, let's condense and
okay,
summarize,
I'm just
please.
giving you some background.
Yes.
I don't think it's wise to continue.
Pick up on that. Okay.
How do others feel?
Well, you know how I feel about that. I don't agree with that. But
Kevin?
Well, I think with some changes, particularly to the Carrillo Street elevation, that the style, can be made appropriate to what's surrounding it.
To my eye, butting up against that existing building, it's a bit of a clash to drastically change the style too much. I think that the Carrillo Street is the more residential side of the building, and we've talked about that in ways to kind of ameliorate that elevation. So I think I'm okay with the style in the back, considering kind of where it is. My concerns were really architectural. The boxiness and potentially even the height of the elevation was a concern of mine.
So we're in your motion. We're in the middle of your motion.
So can we read back the motion, please? I'm sorry.
So I've got, do you want me to read the whole thing?
Please.
Okay, so major building, the majority of the board feels the brick elements on Carrillo is not appropriate at this site. Explore alternate material. Number 2, greater setback of roofs and I think you said studio cantilever along Carrillo Street.
Correct.
Number 3, study massing of the rear units facing the parking lot. I have CP parking lot south. Oh, Canon Perdido. Break up massing and boxiness of that elevation. Number 4, study roof assemblies and study heaviness of the beam elements. Number 5, in general, the massing along Carrillo needs work and is an unacceptable design. Number 6, board. The board.
Did you say 4th story in the back was appropriate?
Yeah, that's it. The board, appreciates the 4 stories tucked into the, thank you, Melissa, tucked into the middle and the 3 stories on Carrillo. Number 7, parking is acceptable. Number 8, modulate the roof lines to fit more with the existing contours. Number 9, provide more landscaping and open space and less hardscape. Number 10, architecture is not appropriate for this location due to its location near EPV and the cottage-style residential buildings around it.
Hold on, Susan.
Making it more Santa Barbara. So that
one is that we're questioning whether
Right.
Scott
That's what I have so
that.
far.
Okay,
I
great.
wasn't suggesting including the last comment.
So take that out?
Yeah. And I don't think we wanted to comment on the parking necessarily, do we?
Well, we do need to comment, whether there's an aesthetic impact to the reduction in parking.
I wouldn't think there would be.
So,
well, you had said the parking was acceptable as one of your comments.
I meant the parking layout.
Circulation.
Yeah, circulation.
So there's one little fine pointer. It's very hard to say in one breath that the board appreciates the massing of the project and the fact that taller buildings have been inserted into the depression on the site, and also say that we want the massing of the building to follow the topography.
Fair enough. But I recommend striking the appreciate comment, simply because there's some contention on that.
Is that a minority or
So what's
some or
I
the majority?
think, well, to my eye, this elevation is a problem, and the 4 stories may be a part of that problem. So revisiting that comment, I'm questioning whether we should say we appreciate the 4 stories at the back, because to my eye, it's creating an elevational problem.
Should we take a straw vote on that?
Well, I feel that.
We're in a motion.
The building,
Sorry.
are we commenting on this motion or what?
Well, I think,
Because, I mean, you want people to vote for this motion, right?
well, Scott does. I don't know if I do.
Okay, so, but the comment is that the 4-story building that's in the valley is actually going to block a lot of views. Its own views and also the views of the
Well,
Schmidt
that
office
hasn't been
building.
established. And I think that's one of the things
Well, you can see
that we could ask for is to
Yeah.
provide a view study. We haven't asked for that, and one hasn't been provided.
I just feel that as architecture and massing of a project on a hillside, that it really ought to reflect the hillside. That's an architectural comment.
So
I don't necessarily agree with you for those particular reasons, so I'd like to leave that out, if that's okay. Pardon me?
I'm sorry.
Are we okay with the motion? Can we take a vote?
Well, I'm going to vote against that motion because you removed my comment.
Did you want a view study to be added?
I think it's an excellent idea. Let's do some view studies of the site.
And then, I don't know if you need to add this as a comment, but we had a request to have all the ABR members do a site visit.
Yes.
So I would like to know who went. All 4 of you. Great. Okay, thank you.
People that
And then
aren't
I'll contact the 3 who are not here. Thanks.
So we could ask them to come back before it goes on to the staff hearing officer too. That's another option.
I think there's some value in that, coming back.
And since there are only 4 members here, it would be, I think it would also be of value to have other board members chime in on what they think. So it could be, would 2 weeks be enough for you to come back with some changes? So it could be a 2-week continuance back to the full board?
And we will do some view studies, because I think those will be very revealing in both ways.
Yeah. I think there's only one comment that I object to, which is a major one, is about the material design along Carrillo Street. So if you could modify that comment to say some board members feel,
Sure.
then I could vote for
That would be correct.
Okay. And I would just add,
That was on the first comment?
Yes.
So, so just some board members feel the brick element is
Yes.
not appropriate.
yeah. And the other thing I would add is, I think landscaping, as to emphasize Howard's comment, that to mitigate some of the height impacts and massing impacts, that larger landscape areas and maybe a preliminary landscape plan, just a conceptual one, would be helpful. Yeah. So I think along Carrillo, there's some little planters shown there with little growies, but I think you need something bigger that's going to help soften that. And probably along here as well. So, and now we have a motion.
Yeah.
So, and we have a seconder. And so we're going to vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed.
One opposed.
With the comment that I agree with pretty much everything,
Mm-hmm.
but I really do think that a project of this size,
Well, since they're coming back in 2 weeks.
yeah, and they have a view study, that's fine.
Yeah.
The point's made.
Yeah.
Point's made.
Yes. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The color one, the expensive one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, everybody in the room hates me.
2800 block of Cliff Drive. It's item number 2. This is a final review of a proposal to construct a single-lane roundabout at the intersection of Las Positas Road and Cliff Drive to improve traffic operations. The roundabout will incorporate bicycle and pedestrian facilities and allow for future connectivity to a proposed multi-use pathway along Las Positas Road and potential bike lanes and/or bike path along Cliff Drive.
Whew, a nice easy one.
That was a tough one.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with those.
I could. Do you have comments from the last meeting to read, Kurt?
I hope we will have those, yes. It's last reviewed April 25th. We had 4 comments. Number 1, remove the asphalt in all the median areas. Number 2, provide planting zones in the same median areas. Number 3, clarify the sidewalk to street transition at the southeast end of the project. Number 4, provide a dimensioned plan. Your names for
All right, sure. Ashley Shue, City of Santa Barbara, Public Works Department.
I'm David Black, landscape architect.
So we can go through each of the comments, and we can start with the modifications to the landscape plan to be responsive to the board's comments last time.
Very good.
I think the first thing to acknowledge is that the asphalt in the splitter islands, in fact, will be removed. So
Okay.
That's it.
Nice.
Okay. And then we have added some, per your direction, planting at this location. This is Cliff Drive, and then these 3 areas as you enter into the roundabout. I'm sorry, Courtney's not here, but this is the particular plant material. It's a native grass, Carex divulsa, Berkeley sedge, and so it's low. I don't have to worry. I don't have issues with lines of sight, particularly near the roundabout, and it's drought tolerant, native. We have sort of a requirement for all native material because of its proximity to the creek. So, so that's what's being proposed.
Does that get irrigation?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all part of it. We have this whole site is irrigated by reclaimed water, or will be. So we will, because we're taking the asphalt out, so we should have that look that we originally intended.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nice.
And then the other item that was requested, one of the other items, was clarification on the transition areas between the sidewalk and the roadway, and I can point those out. The first location was here, where the sidewalk is ramping down to the street level. And so this is a rendering that our designer put together. So this is the multi-use path coming in from this direction toward the east. And then the bikes can ramp down to street level, and it ties in with the existing sidewalk that continues up Cliff Drive here.
Okay.
And then on the other side over here, similarly shows the ramp down to street level for bikes to enter onto the multi-use pathway.
Very colorful.
Yeah. And then I believe the last comment was about providing a dimension plan, and I have the full plan set here, which will get submitted here. And
I think one of the things we were concerned here was how it met the existing sidewalk and parkway condition. And I guess that's illustrated.
Like almost a rolled curb.
We're still not seeing that here.
It looks like a chamfered curb.
Blue curb with the yellow.
Is it blue or shadow?
oh, it's a shadow.
Oh, it's a shadow?
But I can pull up the construction plan. So it's shown here with notes. And let's see, 14. So this is this this the right way. This transition. This is the planting area. The rendering just, it doesn't represent how this is going to be landscaped.
Gold is the new green.
Very true. I don't know, does that help clarify?
I think so.
So the pathway is, this is the continuation of the sidewalk, and this area is ramping down to the street level here.
So the red
So
area
the
is the
bikes can
truncated
continue.
domes?
Correct. Those are truncated domes,
So what's
which are
currently
shown
right
here.
Is this street and
Asphalt.
curb?
Yes.
This is bike path?
Currently,
Yeah.
currently, this is the existing curb face.
Okay.
So we're,
So this is street,
right,
and there's a demarcated bike path that continues?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
The on-street
Now
bike
I'm
lane.
clear.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. Did you want to look at the other
No,
corner as
no,
well?
no,
It was just
I'm
that
good.
one?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
I believe that addresses all of the board's comments.
Yeah, and the dimension plan that shows the widths of the units.
It's shown on various sheets. We have our line and curve sheet and table, and then we have cross sections. This is the full plan set. I know last time I had only brought the landscaping plans, so this is the full set. Our grading plan. That shows all the details. Was there a particular area that you were interested?
Yeah, that's what we were looking for, is the medians.
That's the striping plan. It's going to be best shown on the cross sections. So for example, cross section F, we have multiple cross sections through each splitter, so through the ramp areas and then through the center of each splitter island, which are shown here.
But the location of the cross-section is at a point where it's very thin. We were more concerned about the bigger parts of the median.
Do you have scale?
I was going to say the big scale.
Yeah.
I meant to grab it off my desk, and
Have
it's
a
still sitting on my desk.
Engineering scale, please. 1 to 20. I think we did this once. We just wanted to see it on the plan, so it was very clear.
We can draw it on there.
They'll probably stake it by computer GIS or something like that.
It's like 14 right there.
You want to look at that, where the state office.
David, what is the planning material that you're showing there?
Sedge.
It's a sedge.
Oh, you said that. I'm sorry. How tall does that get?
I'd say 12 to 18 inches.
Which is under our 2-foot maximum for visibility.
David, what would you say the width of this planting is? What's remaining after the stones? Is it 3?
Well, you could scale that off too,
3
but
4 feet maybe?
it's pretty much drawn to scale.
Just where the planting is.
That's 3. Right there.
I suspect it's going to get larger than it's shown there, spread-wise.
Okay. So would someone like to make a motion?
Do we need to go through public comment?
Oh, anyone in the public like to comment on this project? Seeing no one, we'll go to questions from the board.
No questions? Ready to approve?
Okay, comments? No comments?
Motion to approve as submitted?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Going to be nice.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be,
Finish it off.
that's going to look
It's going to be
nice.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thank you
Shooting
for
to
moving
start
the
in
asphalt.
November with construction.
Oh, wow. I'll stay away.
They'll be
long
here
will it take?
soon. It'll take about 4 to 6 months.
Oh, you mean,
Once set together for
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to.
construction is 4 to 6 months?
Mhm.
And when do you think that would start?
In early November is what we're
Okay.
targeting right now.
We're on to item 3, which is 540 West Pueblo Street. It's another final review item. And I'm not seeing the presenter.
You might be outside.
Mr. Chairman. Excuse me for a moment.
Sure. Take a 2-minute break while we get set up.
And then we came in for intermediate between for design review approval and this to look at the mechanical well and make sure everything was okay.
Okay, so I'll just read this for the public. Project consists of a new comprehensive outpatient cancer treatment facility, 4-tier parking structure with 180 spaces, 2 small commercial structures, 6 rental housing units, and a merger of 10 lots located between West Junipero and West Pueblo Streets into a 3.38 acre lot. But as we've mentioned, this is we're just looking at the learning center here today at 529. And our comments last time. Let's see if you can find those somewhere. Do you have any comments?
What was the last date?
Did we ask you to address certain things last time?
No.
No.
It was just the prior review, we had discussed the mechanical well, and we addressed some of those comments when
Yeah.
we came back. And so it was just saying, we addressed those comments, we've improved it, and it seemed like it was, you had a straw vote, most people supported it, and
Okay.
we moved on.
So we're looking at details and final drawings,
Exactly.
lighting, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Uh,
Your name for the record,
Huh?
please. Your name for the
Oh,
record.
yes, Christine Prone with the Cornell Collective.
Lisa Laus with Canal Collective.
So, yes, you have seen this project now a few times, so, and I think it has not made any substantial changes, so I'm just going to kind of go through it quickly. The Learning Center here on the corner at Junipero across from Oak Park. Nothing has really changed on the plans. Floor plans have stayed the same. We just have more working drawings, how the well works, reflected ceiling plans. The elevations have remained the same from the last time you saw them. Just to have the detailed call-outs, and yeah, I don't think anything changed. Those are the same sections. And more sections. And details, and a lot of these you saw already. We brought these in early to show how we were putting especially the assembly of those clear stories to the doors and the factory mold condition. And also you've seen a lot of the eave detailing. We've got these very deep eaves that we're using kind of a weave pattern on the corners with some little kind of slender little raptor tails, very delicate detailing. I think we did develop this little wood frieze we have around the porch element and have that all called out and sized. Again, it's kind of showing what you'd seen in the model, but it's now been detailed. And pretty standard roof details. guardrail will be a wood guardrail that we're showing here with the little bases on the posts. And we are, having receiving the sandstone finish so that is going to be clad in sandstone. And because we had to use concrete, we'll just have a little bit of a reveal of concrete that's colored. And that's it. We didn't have a landscape for today, so if you want to review that or not, but at least just the architecture. So I think mostly it's everything you'd already seen.
Did you show us a lighting plan?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, the lights. Thank you for saying that. I think we showed you the exterior lights. We probably have it on us. So at this door is this guy, and otherwise we're using recessed into the ceiling here, so those aren't visible. And then the site walls, there's the walkways up, have set into the walls. Step lights. And then there's a path that goes along here that will have little bollard types.
And these lights all match what's at the main cancer center building.
Okay. Do you have a drawing that shows the site walls and where those lights are?
Get to them the E sheets.
You want to find it?
Sure.
Okay. Are there electrical meters and gas meters and backflows located now that weren't before?
Backflows are going to be out more street side.
Okay.
Electrical meter will be here. The gas meter will be right on here.
And just one gas meter for the building?
Mm-hmm.
Where is the backflow on the site plan? Did we look at that last time?
This one, so we talked about having backflow preventers back out in here. Meters will come in from this way, and we'll be on this one. We'll have the fire water will be connected to the parking structure of fire water.
Okay.
And then the water meter will be out here.
So it's just a landscape backflow, not a fire backflow. Okay.
And we did talk about this little transformer at the last hearing, just to make sure you're aware of it. This was the residential size one that will have the ability to landscape around that.
But you don't have finished landscape drawings today. I'm understanding that correctly?
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed from the last time. From what you
there were
reviewed.
no comments. Wasn't there comments about screening that?
The backflow preventer, that one would be this.
No, screening this. Wasn't there a comment about screening that or not?
I don't believe so.
No, there was actually.
Was there?
Yeah, she had that hardscaped and she needed to fix that. So she may need to come back if, yeah. Unless we can, did she? Yeah, it's upside down at her legend. Yeah, she's putting the lily here.
That's it? That's
Yeah.
screening?
Well, you can see the size of this guy. They're only like that.
Oh, okay. All right.
The backflow in the parkway, it's above grade, little landscape backflow, is that right?
For the landscape
Yeah.
for this one is going to be connected to the main. The whole site will have one backflow preventer.
No, for landscape?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's here in the parkway?
I think you meant the meters in the parkway.
Oh, the meters in the parkway, okay.
meter,
And not the backflow, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said the backflow. Okay.
Okay, we'll open up public comment. Seeing no one, we'll go to questions from the board. Howard, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Kevin?
No questions. No questions.
None from me either. And comments?
I think it's It's ready.
Okay, any differing comments? Nope. Would you like to make a motion, Howard?
I move for final approval as submitted, with compliments to the architects.
Your mic is off.
Yeah, you got to say that.
Gotta get that on the record.
That was off the record.
Now I get a totally different comment.
I move for final approval as submitted with compliments to the architect.
Okay. We need a seconder?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
You.
Back on schedule.
Yep.
Actually, ahead of schedule.
I have one little
way ahead.
suggestion.
It was a difficult first
We're
review.
going to take a 15-minute break.
Piece of roof.
And we're on to item number 4, which is 350 Hitchcock Way. This is last reviewed on August 31st, 2015, so I'll read the description. Proposal to demolish an existing approximately 15,936 square foot service bay structure and construct a new 36,752 square foot two-story automobile dealership building. The building will include 3 automobile showrooms, business and automobile parts area, enclosed service bays, and interior car storage. The project includes 99 parking spaces, and it's part of an approved subdivision, and was granted Planning Commission approval, was that April 7th?
Correct.
And we can take action on it today if sufficient information is provided. Your names for the record, please.
My name is Robert Plant with Flex Designs. Chuck McClure, landscape architect.
And I'm Maruha Quince with Suzanne Elledge, Planning and Permitting Services. And Planning Commission directed us on the 7th, specifically Commissioner Peugeot and Schwartz, to ask ABR to review the glossy sheen exterior appearance of the project and to consider softening the appearance to be a little more compatible with Santa Barbara. And also we were instructed to provide a landscape plan for Lot 1, the Lexus dealership, just so we could see some consistency with maintenance of the berm for both Lots 1 and 2.
Okay. It looks like we had quite a few comments last time we saw it as well. Maybe Scott can read those out. Or should we go through them one by one?
Why don't we do that? Okay, motion, item number 1. The majority of the board appreciates the design and massing and the material and detailing of the proposed project. 2, provide a minimum 12-foot brown trunk palm tree next to the 2-story porte cochere on the north side of the building. Can we get that in there?
Yep. It was always in there.
Let's look at
It was
it.
actually always in there.
There may have been a comment held over from the previous.
Way out here, they wanted to see a couple of good-sized palms, so that was the, there's 2 of them right here
Okay,
with 12
that's the
feet.
porte cochere there, okay.
Yes.
Okay. The board has reviewed the proposed project and compatibility analysis, and the findings were as follows. Just a list of the items. So that was it for the previous one. These were all just compatibility analysis.
Okay, very good. Would you like to talk about how you reworked the finish, or did you work the finish?
It really isn't a glossy finish. There's a sample of it. It's an ACM. Basically, it's an aluminum composite material. It's kind of got a dull finish. In the architectural rendering that we did, using the lighting to make it look interesting, it made the surface look a little glossy in the rendering, and I think that's what they were commenting on. This is the first time we presented the material.
I think the board saw the material last time we were here. We saw that piece of that.
And the specific comment from PC was what? What is the wording?
With regard to community aesthetics and compatibility, Commissioners Schwartz and Peugeot requested that staff ask ABR to review the glossy sheen exterior appearance of the project and consider softening the appearance to be more compatible with Santa Barbara.
Well, I do see a sheen on it. It's not like a high gloss sheen, but it does.
Right.
It has a slight reflectance. Satin sheen.
Like a metallic finish of a car body almost, or something like that, but less glossy.
So I think board members need to decide whether that's acceptable or not, given the Planning Commission's direction. Let's look at the elevations. That's all elevations, or no? Just the street elevations.
The street elevation is predominantly the metal panel and glass. Very
Can you show
simple
us
Italian.
that sheet, please.
There's the front elevation. This is the material. And this is basically the glass. This is an opening. This is the porte cochere, and this is a porte cochere. I believe that is stucco, isn't it?
The storefront mullions are what color?
This is stucco. Pardon?
The storefront mullions, what color?
They're natural aluminum.
So just, okay.
Basically, they're that color.
Well, clear anodized is different than that color, right?
Okay.
Are they clear anodized?
Clear anodized.
Okay. And so these are just kind of hidden joints, just quarter-inch joints between this. There's no joint material in there.
They're about 3/8.
3/8?
Yeah, for expansion in the sun.
And then the backside expansion door, it all looks the same material, right?
Yes, there's two different types of ACM. One is a wet seal where they'll shoot silicone in it. This is a dry, so you don't get people putting their fingers in it and staining it over time. So it's just a dry, simple shingle system.
Okay. And the text is white, is that right? Is it very?
The text, yeah, to be honest, all I know is it's a plexi that goes into a aluminum can, and that'll be a separate permit. I'm not sure what the color face is at this time.
Okay.
I think we did it white just to contrast with the color.
Has anything changed since the last time we saw it? In terms of height or width or any aspect of it?
There's only one change that we looked at. One of the comments was before that we had, I'll say, the backs of the building. We had white stucco and gray stucco. What we looked at going to was just a simple horizontal ribbed metal panel in lieu of the stucco to give it more light and texture. As a comment from the design board. Basically, it would be this color right here. And we're looking at just a 2-inch rib, if that's acceptable, or we'll go back to stucco.
A rib, meaning like corrugated?
Corrugated. 2-inch, like a 2-inch face, 2-inch recess, 2-inch negative space.
Okay. Let's look at that detail.
That's more of a box rib.
That's just the metal coming up to the stucco, so we've got it finished. There it is there.
Okay.
Or go back to a stucco. But we were trying to look at, your request of doing something a little bit different.
You have a detail where these panels turn the corner?
Yeah. Here's the details, horizontal, vertical, bottom. Nope, that's metal.
Go back one sheet.
Yeah. Flooring details.
And the parapet for it as well, or was that parapet cap?
Parapet cap's right
Wraps.
there, the way it's wrapping.
And that cap is where you've got plaster,
Yeah, where we've got plaster.
and that's matches rib metal, okay.
And that's just the rib metal. So there's your 3 parapet caps. There's the 4th. I don't see turning the corner.
Chuck, when you last, so I'll open up public comment and see no one will go to questions from the board. The landscape plan is now ready for final approval?
Yes.
And has it changed at all?
No, it hasn't. And we have irrigation, and it's a bid set ready to go. And then the only difference from the last time I was here is we have an as-built for the parcel to the south, because Planning Commission said, well, if we're going to lot split, where's some documentation of what's going? So this is a snapshot of what's there, and there's no screening issues from the neighborhood. So I have not proposed anything. This is just an as-built of the lot 1, and that was something they asked us to do. So this is the only new thing I have, except for my irrigation and bid docs. So there's nothing new subjective for you today.
Okay. Any other questions? Howard?
No, not at this time.
Kevin? No questions. Scott?
Are there options for the metal with a little less sheen? Anything else you can show us? With you?
I could probably look at a more matte.
It'd be
color.
more like, it would have less patina, just more of a matte gray, like a painted gray perhaps, or?
Yeah, basically it is a paint over the aluminum panel.
I don't think it's as interesting.
Something that's more, is that still too shiny?
That looks a little matter.
It's a little matter.
Yeah. That was my only question.
Okay. So comments, Howard?
Well, I think I agree with the question, the comment that I think the sheen of the aluminum panels should be toned down or maybe.
Microphone.
Yeah, it's almost good. Happens all the time. Should be brought closer to a matte finish.
Okay.
And I do have one comment on the details. Sheet A84. I'm looking at detail 5, ACM roof cap. Very nice detail, in which this panel is actually wrapped over the top of the parapet.
Number 5, did you say?
Number 5.
Okay.
On sheet A84. Left over from the break. No, I'm good. So did you get all that about sheet A 8.4, detail 5, ACM roof cap? Compliments about the detail there. It's too bad that the stucco, detail 16, stucco at parapet, doesn't also wrap around over the top and is instead has a galvanized sheet metal flashing cap. I see that detail 12, which is a ribbed metal parapet, also has the same, but in fact, it covers the ribbed metal, which is metal to metal, which makes sense. I hope that flashing to match ribbed metal, yes, I see it in words. So that's that, but I would think that, like to see the stucco wrap the parapet. So it goes around to the backside, over the top. It's a much more elegant detail, which this building is. That's the only comment I have.
Okay. Kevin, comments?
No comments.
Scott?
I'm not convinced that a matter material would be better, but I'd like to see other options.
I'm sorry.
I'm not convinced that matte is necessarily better, but I'd like to see other options for the exterior materials. And I am not sold on the ribbed siding on the upper level. Particularly the box rib, I think can look clunky. And this building has a lot of refinement to it. I think I would opt for a plaster solution. I don't think the designs you've had to this point have hit the mark in terms of providing enough interest back there. We've seen a few things, and you haven't quite hit it yet, but I'm confident you will.
How do other board members feel about the ribbed metal siding?
Use the term boxed rib.
Yeah, if you look at detail 11 on A8.4.
Yes. So that shape is boxed rib?
I call it a box rib. I mean, it's not corrugated.
I thought its box was 90 degrees.
Well, not technically.
But you were talking about the same siding.
Yeah.
I think we should be clear whether, if we want, it needs to be a stucco finish, then we should state that. If it's okay for it to be metal, but a different type, that should also be stated.
Where are the elevations? Sheet?
A3.
A few things get to my eye. It just feels kind of arbitrary where the metal starts and stops, and there's not a strong rationale. If there were a change of height in the parapet or something, that may add some more rationale to it. I'm talking about this up here.
That's what he used for the lineup.
The
Oh.
He's lining up with that opening.
Because normally this is wide open, so it's a dark hole.
Yeah. I'm not sold, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't think we have, we've struggled with this on these dealerships of using metal panels as a finish material. Even white or off-white panels we've opposed and asked them to go to plaster. So I think we need to be really consistent and clear about this. This is a large building, obviously.
I know I've used up my ammo, but I have
Go for it, Howard.
another comment. I agree with Scott on the subject of the ribbed siding, but the thing that is kind of disturbing is that the siding just kind of stops, and it should either go all the way or not at all. It's kind of like it's just like a panel that is looking for a place to end, and it doesn't end. It just kind of in the middle of a wall. Like, for example, this is a roll-up door here, A3.1 east elevation on the
Yes.
That's a roll-up door. So, it might be kind of interesting to go to the corner, and then where is it here that goes back here? Turns the corner? So that piece of building then becomes more layered. That's my.
Can I speak? Or?
I mean,
Yes.
Yes.
Well, if I did that, I might as well just take it out. Then it would just be the off-white running around, just a ribbon. I tried to do it as like a Mondrian, where it's just a piece on the building that's part of the design.
Yeah, that's why I see it as an abstract
it's-
placement of a form in relation to other forms. To me, I mean, I could see Scott's point about having the parapet pop up or something, but the other thing I would mention is that even though it's represented very dark on the elevation, it's a light gray. So,
But it'll have shadows.
Yeah.
Which give it depth.
Yep.
With the parapet, we're really stuck with height limits. We've squeezed really hard to get it down.
Okay.
So if I pop the parapet up, I mean, more than happy to, but that would make the building taller. I could bring this one up. The problem is I can't go, when I came back with the lower elevations, I squeezed it as tight as we could. To visualize, if you have an SUV parked and a mechanic wants to work on it, he raises the hood. raises it up and walks underneath. That's 6 plus 7.5 feet of vehicle. You know, when you put the structure and the sprinklers and everything into it, I mean, we are really sandwiched when we went through this with the engineering of the building.
Are these in plane?
There's a detail for that. This is,
Yes, I believe they are.
How thick is this? This is 3.5-ish.
It's 2 inches.
So
So this pops out of plane about an inch.
Way to fatten that wall up to accept maybe metal, a stop.
It stops
That
on
and this
top of
wall?
that surface, right?
Kevin?
Right.
It does
That
stop.
in this wall?
This is an
Yeah.
8-inch block wall. That's a wood stud wall. We went wood stud because they're using the diaphragm to tie into the lower. So they've got it basically wrapping all the way across.
so the ribs,
Actually, that's right. We narrowed it up so that we could keep it all in plane. I
but
was
the,
thinking it was
but the
beyond.
plaster overhangs, is that right? Looks like it.
Wood parapet. That's a special condition.
Is the rib siding more costly
It actually is.
than stucco?
All right, so someone like to make a motion?
Do you comment on the finish at all, other than we should be careful?
Well, I don't think we've approved a metal siding on any of these dealerships, and we've seen them coming back and fighting for it, and we've never approved it.
Okay.
So I don't know why we would make an exception on this very large building. And I think if it was plaster, it would fit in with other dealerships that are there.
What's the detail between the plaster and the masonry? If you
We're talking about the metal in the front, Howard.
Talking about-
that metal.
yeah,
I thought he was talking about rib metal.
No, I'm actually okay with the rib metal. To me, it seems like an industrial material, which, kind of for a car dealership, and where cars are also being worked on it, it works for me. And it's to the back, and it's to the back. And it provides a nice visual change to that.
So what are you thinking about for the other metal, this one,
Well,
the aluminum?
I mean, we could look at other options, but I don't know, I'm thinking plaster. I mean, like I said, I remember we fought against a dealership that wanted to put white metal. It was white metal. And, very close to a plaster color, and we wouldn't let them do it. We insisted on plaster. So, I don't know why we would make an exception on this building. And that was in the last year.
Yeah.
You were around when that happened.
Comment about that is that these metal panels create lines, and the grid of lines is contemporary, but it also is not. If it were a muted color or a matte finish, the grid is very subtle. It's a modern thing, but it still doesn't pull away from the formality. So I would think the same thing would be true of the ribbed metal, which is mixed the feeling about this. But I wouldn't stop this right in the middle of a wall. I would run it all the way. Or if it's expensive and you want to get rid of it, then I would run this plaster element all the way around the second floor and create a detail here that where the plaster comes down and sits on a wall, there's a cap or something, or maybe some more contemporary. But I think stopping that, I don't get the Mondrian.
We asked him to provide some modulation to the visual impact of that upper floor. We asked him to do that, and that's his response to it.
You mean by chopping
Instead
it up?
of it having to be all white plaster, because it was that way at one time.
Yes.
It was that way at one time.
I think the very first meeting it was.
Okay.
Well, I think it's chopped up, but too bad. I mean,
Well, I'm only pointing out because we asked him for this. This is his response to our request, and now we're saying, oh, take it out, so.
well,
I remember you were very vocal about that, too.
Well, I was vocal more about the height. I had a problem with height. But I think that as a building viewed from international space, that the use of this material to cap the second floor all the way around from, where is it? From this location here all the way to the corner, and then to turn the corner all the way to the corner, and to turn the corner here all the way to the corner. It calms the building down to my eye. Sorry about the
Basically, that
cost.
whole upper floor that's
Yes.
currently plastered, just make it, at the taller parapet, make it all metal or plastered.
I think the windows, the openings in that surface, and this garage door and so forth, that will be kind of interesting. Maybe that's the Mondrian element. Not really. I know what you're talking about, though.
I guess the bigger fish to fry is what material is this front elevation? Is it the metal panels, or is it like a smooth troweled steel troweled stucco?
So that goes around, doesn't it? That material goes around this
Part way. You can see it on the
you see it
south
on
elevation.
Goes to here.
the
Yeah.
south,
And
and you
on
see
the-
it
on the
also
north.
on the east.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the north. Yeah.
Yeah, wraps around.
I have two thoughts on that. One, you don't typically see these gigantic spans out of stucco material, so there'd be a lot of expansion joints. It's not going to be as clean as a more conventional Santa Barbara wall. So it's a little oddball in that regard, just by the very shape of it. I think that the metal panels would be a crisper, more finely detailed product in the end. I've seen some of the modern buildings built in the 60s on State Street that have like the bank and things where old Sandman Hotel was. There's a bank next door that has some kind of smooth steel troweled, cantilevered roof elements. And the craftsmanship is pretty nice. They're stylistically 60s, but the craftsmanship is very nice. So I guess my answer is I'm on the fence on the plaster versus steel. I think steel is a little at odds for Santa Barbara, but I think it'd be handsome. So curious to hear what others had to say.
Well, I think I just, based on precedent, where we have, as I've mentioned now twice, we've reviewed other proposals for other dealerships that wanted to put metal panels, and we've said no. And now we've got a dark gray one being proposed, and I just to be consistent with what we've looked at in the past, and also the direction that I think the Planning Commission is giving us, that I don't think it's appropriate. So, and would this smooth troweled plaster be? Yes, there's a. It's not a traditionally styled building, but and I think we could look at other possibilities if the architect wanted to propose them. But to me, I think the plaster still works in terms of placing it in context with what's around it. And in Santa Barbara.
Would you agree to breaking up the plaster with these grid lines, the way they're having the control joints where there's a grid line?
I think, I think it would be okay.
It's more control joints than you would need. Typically 12 feet on center.
It's for the eye.
It might make more sense for them to line up with the windows. I don't know, but I wouldn't have to. Or window mullions, rather. That's my view.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
They're asking for PDA, so could you grant it PDA and leave this one design aspect for the next time they come back for final with the full board here?
We could.
What about in progress? Would you be willing to come with an in progress? This is a pretty good set of plans here. But so we could see what these things look like before you come to a meeting of the minds?
Yeah, I could do that.
Do you have a lighting plan as well in the set?
There is.
Is this a finished set of drawings? Architectural drawings?
Not the complete set. We do have, I was told not to submit all those.
Oh.
It's like that thick.
Okay.
Well, there is E1 and E2.
We've included,
Site lighting plan. Are
Oh,
you looking
site-
for
site
interior?
lighting, yes.
It's a
No, interior,
photometric.
just the exterior lighting.
we've included all those sheets required for the final checklist.
Do you want to show us the fixtures you've chosen and all that? All that good stuff.
All that good stuff. Keep going back. I was looking at the prior stuff I had.
The photometric should be in here.
Is that the earlier stuff?
A1, 2.
Yeah, there's a photometric.
A1, 2.
Oh, it's A1 too.
Yeah,
We're curious what the pictures look like, the light poles and exterior lights and things like that.
Oh, but,
here we go.
yeah, they're,
Okay,
I mean,
so
the new lights are,
LED.
they're about
kind
that
of-
thick, about that long, very simple plate. They're,
Mhm.
I believe this job is Letelier. Just had LSI, brand new LSI ones put on other sites for demos just this week.
So one of the typical requirements for final approval is that you have cut sheets of each of the fixtures
Oh,
that you're
okay.
proposing for the outside.
Yeah,
It
it's
looked like you had some, under the canopies, you have some
under,
continuous.
under the big canopies, they are. They're basically just little rectilinear LED lights to give a nice bright. And part of the problem is the one canopy is up very high and it's hard to get. Most LEDs want to be 20 feet off the surface. We're up a little higher than that. So we had to find a special light to go on. But I can bring the cut sheets. It's not, they're all spelled out in the set. I just didn't know I had to bring the cut sheets.
Okay. That would be a concern to me, to have that big high canopy really intensely lit.
You want to go to the photometric page? Was that A1? A1.2, I think.
We're using your
Yeah.
legend from the building set.
Yeah, could we borrow that set from you for 1 minute? There's the photometrics that we used. I was actually looking at the back, making sure we didn't get too bright along the neighbors. We're nice and dark. I think the hot spot is 6-foot candles, which isn't very bright at all. He doesn't have it underneath here. It's not all that bright underneath here. The nice thing with the LEDs now is you can really control the light coming down. The entire building is LED, everything inside, everything outside.
It looks like we have a full-size E2.2 in the back.
Oh,
But if it's 24, 22 feet up, you're going to be looking up into them. That's what I'm more concerned about, not what the light candle is at the ground, but what's
I
it
only
look
have
like
a
looking up.
E2.1.
There's E2.1.
yeah, I didn't see the photometrics on it. It just has all the lights shown.
So these are the guys you're worried about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be another comment, is maybe it's,
If there's a way they can be baffled so you don't see them from the street per se.
yeah.
The specs are different. We don't have cut sheets. You know, they've got all it's mechanical. All the lights are called out on.
Susan, isn't it true that staff normally also reviews the photometric, make sure it's not bleeding offsite?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that was done as part of Planning Commission review.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, There's all the lights specified.
These guys are in the canopy?
Yeah.
What page is that?
E1.2.
Surface mounted on the canopy.
Okay. So, it looks like the set is nearly ready, and we could have you come back in a couple weeks. You could, my suggestion would be to come back with a couple of options as an alternate to the siding, because if we don't like what you come back with, then you're going to be coming back again. So if we have some things to choose from.
Okay.
And if white plaster is an option, you may want to just show the score lines of what those might be if it heads that direction.
I agree with that. Elegance is what we're looking for.
So would
Do you agree to the running the plaster over the top as well?
Yes.
For the front elevation, definitely.
Yeah. I would say anywhere you have a plaster wall.
Yep. Okay, so the motion would be a 2-week continuance, back to the full board.
Mr. Chair, it's full.
Okay.
That agenda's full, so it would
Sorry.
be June 20th.
June 20th is the next available agenda. With the following comments. Well,
Applicant to return with options.
thank you. We'll start with that. That's the easy one. Applicant to return with options for the aluminum siding panels proposed. And it sounds like the preference of the board is plaster with elegantly placed score lines or expansion joints.
Could we go into that for a minute then? I mean, if you're just going to go for stucco, I mean, the
But we could look at other options. But as I mentioned, we've had proposals, but much smaller buildings with metal panels, off-white metal panels, and we found it unacceptable. So, I mean, you want to come back and show that as an option, you
Well, I
can.
was going to ask other materials. I mean, you're looking
Okay,
at the
other
exterior of tile, stone.
I think if it fits within the Santa Barbara context, that's kind of what we're looking for.
Okay.
Is that if,
I've got to be in this realm of gray for it to be a Maserati store, so I'm coming back with a stone that looks gray like that. Would that be acceptable to the group, or would I just come in with, just say, make it stucco and we move forward?
It's gray stucco.
If I choose between gray stucco and gray metal panels, I think I'd pick gray metal panels every day of the week.
I have to be gray. I can't go white. Sorry.
That's some beautiful trowel finishes with just gray stucco are very nice.
Yeah. Like Italian troweled finish or something.
Yeah.
Maybe
like
that's
marble,
an option.
Like marble, it's how it finishes.
Yeah.
He's asking stone, gray stone, over the whole thing where you're showing gray
The
panels.
gray stone, this project doesn't lend itself to that with the corners and.
It's going to be a veneer.
Yeah.
A lot of joinery.
And the stone with those long spans just feels odd to me.
I agree. I'm not sure how you'd get that to work, and I've never seen anything like that in Santa Barbara. So again, we're trying to keep you in context of the city.
So, but I think you said it. I think that the applicant's going to come back. We like the stucco, maybe the gray, maybe a gray color, whatever. The score lines don't have to repeat what's here, but they can be, used with, placed discreetly somewhere, and just to give it some kind of modular look.
Yeah.
And then my concern is this parapet. You have a real nice job now with the aluminum over the top. If that becomes stucco, then I would do the same thing in stucco over the top.
Okay, so that's comment number 2. Wherever you have a plaster wall or plaster parapet, to eliminate the exposed metal cap.
I don't necessarily think we have to, as a board, swallow the notion that it has to be gray.
Okay, that's open, but
yeah, I'll entertain all options, but gray stucco doesn't, sing Santa Barbara to me.
So What about this corrugated metal?
Yeah, that's the other thing we need to comment on. Howard's suggestion was to have it wrap that whole second floor element.
All or nothing comment is.
I'm okay with it the way it's proposed. So you guys have to figure out what you want to, whose team you're on.
I think the way it's proposed, I don't agree with it.
Okay.
It feels arbitrary to me. I'd like to see a change in the parapet height.
Okay, so I can go along with that.
Okay. Propose a modest change in the parapet height of the corrugated. Either the plaster goes down a little bit or the corrugated comes up, so you get 6 inches or something visually.
Condense that into a real sentence.
Sorry. Provide a change in the parapet height between the corrugated metal and the stucco parapet.
Okay.
And then, did you want the other applicant to return the options for the proposed aluminum siding panels? Preference of the board is, preference of the board is stucco with elegantly spaced score lines for expansion joints.
Smooth plaster with elegantly placed score lines.
Troweled, smooth troweled. Steel troweled. Plaster.
But other options, could be considered. You heard our comments, so you know where we're at.
And I'm stuck. I'm trying to do a Maserati store, and Maserati's going, that's the color. So I could do another material, but I'm stuck with that. Otherwise, it looks like a Ferrari store if I go white, and they won't allow that.
So, or it sounds like we're saying gray is okay.
The alpha colors are charcoal gray and red.
Okay,
which,
so it kind of works.
We toned it down for Santa Barbara by sticking with all gray. So I'm kind of, one arm behind my back, I don't have metal. I've got to go the gray.
Yeah.
Well, there's certainly opportunity to mix the material here, right? We're talking plaster, it could be some stone, it could be tile, some tile in there as well, right?
It could. The other comment was a concern about the lighting shown under the tall canopy nearest the street, and to provide a way of, so it's not a visual nuisance for a pedestrian at the street. Okay. So who's making that motion? I'll make that motion. We need a seconder.
Second.
All in favor?
Third.
Aye.
Aye.
So what are you granting at PDA?
Oh, yes. I would say yes, we are.
Okay, so then you need to
Yep.
do the little
Yep.
CEQA 15183 blurb in there.
Mr. Chair, the Planning Commission made the CEQA finding last month, so you do not need to make that.
Great, thanks. So you have project design approval, and so you'll be coming back for final in June.
Could I ask
Yep.
a couple quick questions so that I don't come back one more time?
Sure. Yep.
On the elevations, with regards to scoring, elegantly, emphasis on the elegantly, we would be starting by maybe putting them every other mullion.
That's a good start.
Do you want me to come back with a couple different scenarios and we pick one? Would that be better?
Well, I think if you carefully study it, that I'm sure you'll come up with something that's going to work.
Okay.
Just, we just want it to make sense, and, proportion-wise and with the other elements on the building. I think, obviously, you're skilled at doing that, so what can I give you?
The biggest hurdle is going to be the finish. And perhaps you have a plasterer make up several versions of the finish you like, so that you don't have to come back multiple times to get it right.
Okay. So you want a sample board with the plaster on it?
I think it would be important, yeah, rather than just a chip that it's hard to get a sense of the actual finish.
Okay.
That's a good suggestion. We could add it to the motion.
Yeah, a sample would.
Can we add that to the motion, please? To provide a sample of proposed finishes, and with the proposed color.
proposed
Finishes.
Samples of the proposed finishes, exterior finishes,
So, Mr.
in the color proposed.
Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate to mention somebody locally who does that, does a very good job of that?
You probably would appreciate it.
Santa Barbara Plastering, Jaime Melgoza. He is a wizard with respect to plaster. Melgoza. And I think, what's his specialty plastering?
Does he work with Young Construction?
Maybe. He's worked with everybody, but he's just really got 3 lifetimes of experience of stucco and finishing and additives and all kinds of things.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So we're going to adjourn the meeting again for about a half hour.
Are we taking a dinner break, or are we?
Did you need this board, or could I take that for?
Susan, since these are going to change, can we let him take this back?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We did. 2118 Oak Park Lane. This is a proposal for 4 new dwelling units in 2 two-story duplexes to be constructed under the average unit density incentive program. The new buildings will be constructed behind an existing 838 square foot single-family dwelling, which will be remodeled. 2 existing sheds will be demolished and 8 fruit trees will be removed. 5 uncovered parking spaces are proposed. There's 40 cubic yards of grading, and the average unit size will be 937 square feet, with an average unit size maximum allowed of 965. And this project was last reviewed on March 28th, and action may be taken. Welcome.
Thank you.
What's your name for the record?
I'm Joseph Flynn. I'm an architect working with Tom Auctioner, who's the architect of record on this.
And we have some comments from last time, do we?
He's in here? This looks like, right here. Oh.
Okay, so the motion was indefinite continuance to the full board with following comments. Number 1, the board appreciates the design and effort that has gone into the proposed project. Number 2, provide a fully developed landscape plan addressing the locations of the common open space, the bicycle parking, and the trash bins. You have that today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Number 3, study the new duplexes and the possibility of incorporating more character-giving elements and details into the design. Number 4, provide exterior elevations of the existing unit. Number 5, provide the elevations of the driveway, gate, and any fencing if proposed. And Gradine, Miller, and Wittosh were absent. So if you could present what we're going to see today.
Sounds great. So I'll walk you through those comments from last meeting. I can cycle back to that perspective view because I think it shows some of the character-giving elements that was mentioned.
Can we look at this just briefly, just to familiarize ourselves with the project again?
So these are some site photographs. The site is here. The photographs on this sheet are more of the immediate site, showing the existing single-family dwelling that's going to be existing to remain with some slight renovations. Also to note, these structures will be demolished in addition to the shed here. I'm sorry, the shed roof, which is going to be demolished.
Okay.
The existing site fence here will remain. Actually, this is our site here. This is the neighbor. This is just to give some neighborhood context. So there is a precedent for California bungalow / craftsman style, as well as multi-family housing. There's some multi-unit duplex condominium style units here, and you can see that there is, like I said, a precedence for California bungalow, and that's really the architectural style that we're proposing.
Okay.
So these drawings are new from last meeting, and for now I have just one landscape plan showing the overall scheme. I didn't go forward with the irrigation plan or the paving plan as such because I wanted to make sure that this scheme was in keeping with the board's comments before developing that further.
Okay.
So if you like, I can go into the major changes in the site plan.
That would be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So previous to this scheme, we had proposed a common open area, which was located here. And the board's comments were that it was a little removed from the units and a little far from people that are going to be accessing that space. The other comment was relating to the bike parking area. So in this scheme, we've taken an effort to locate the common open space central to the two buildings. In doing so, we've had to rework some of the architecture. This exterior wall was going just straight across like this. We had to push these exterior walls back to allow for a 15 by 15 foot common open space.
Okay.
And I think it achieves that pretty well. Let's see here. The trash enclosure is developed further per Karen Gumtow's recommendation of 6 trash bins. And it will be screened from the street with a 6-foot site fence, as well as a row of trees. And let's see here. We've also proposed a covering above the bicycle parking, which will be added onto the existing structure. And we have, per the previous comments, elevations of this building.
Okay. You can go on to the floor plans.
This is the architectural site plan, pretty much what I just described.
Mm-hmm.
We have the same number of parking units, parking spaces. So the floor plan is effectively the same space layout. You can see that this volume has been pushed in, resulting in a slight change of floor plan in the kitchen. We previously had a sort of a C-shape layout. Now it's a open L-shaped layout, which we think actually strengthens the design. It opens up the floor plan a bit and the sight lines in the interior. We've also added bay windows, which are, you can see in the elevation, actually in the 3D view you can see here, they're architectural projections, so they're not, we're not violating the building separation of 10 feet.
Okay.
And we think that, that's in keeping with the comment to add some additional character-giving elements to the building. Also, to note, we have added chimney stacks. Previously, we were suggesting horizontally vented fireplaces. Now we have these vertical elements. Just in the front units, in the rear units, we've kept the horizontally vented gas fireplaces. So that's really the major changes there. That's Unit A. Unit B, pretty much everything I just said applies to Unit B. We've set this area back to allow for the 15 by 15 foot open space. We also have a vertically vented chimney stack towards the front of the unit. I'm sorry, this is the front of the unit. And and we also have the bay windows.
Are the bay windows part of the previous design?
They were not. Okay. So those are a new element. And per the request of the board from previous meeting, these are new elevations of the existing single-family residence. So in this elevation, this is the elevation facing the new duplexes. So we're taking down this existing trellis and proposing a new overhang above the new bike parking area.
Okay.
And it's sort of a California bungalow. This is like board and bat siding. This is stucco. So, it's all original. We hope to, maintain the character of the neighborhood and just rehab it as much as possible, but keep what is there to maintain the existing quality of the neighborhood.
What kind of windows?
There's a mixture. These are actually fixed, and these are casement. They're wood windows, original wood windows.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what page is that?
A2.3.
So I have a totally different plan here.
Yeah, and I apologize. This was a new set.
Okay, so this is obsolete?
Yes.
Better not be looking at that anymore.
You want to come sit over here closer, Howard?
Yeah. I'll just stand, it's okay. So there we are, board and bat, I see it.
The sections, I'm skipping over the sections. 8-foot plate heights, 9-foot floor to floor.
And we have vaulted ceilings in the master bedrooms upstairs, et cetera. So really the major change in terms of the elevation, and again, I think it actually strengthens the design. This used to be one flush surface. Now this center volume has been pushed back, and I think it gives some nice relief.
Yeah, it looks good.
And of course, the vertical elements of the chimney stack there, I think, add to it a little bit.
Is this hardy board, hardy plank, or?
It is. It'll be a shiplap, composite hardy plank material.
These are wood sash windows?
Yes, sir.
And wood trim?
Yes.
On the doors?
Yep, that's right.
You're proposing solid wood or wood clad, or?
It'll be wood clad.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll open up public comment, and seeing no one, we'll go to questions from the board. Do you have any questions, Scott?
Yeah, I do. Question, let me go back to that original perspective. So I guess my question is, how essential is this bay window to the design? The reason I asked it, it's starting to feel pretty pinched in between there, particularly with the overhangs. Were these overhangs part of the original thing we saw last time?
The overhangs were, and actually those bays that come out, they don't protrude further than the planter below. So in terms of the access, we're not limiting, the circulation. But I might be able to, I can see your point.
They're bay windows with a seat, right?
Correct.
No floor.
No floor, right.
And you got the bay windows back to back, 8 feet apart, which is...
Right, they'll be 8 feet apart.
Okay, just trying to understand that. And the intent is that some of these have shutters, some don't. Is this the only one with shutters?
You know what? There might be a couple more.
Okay.
Actually, and thank you for reminding me, we had some just single casement on the second floor with the shutters next to the single window. I've replaced that with the double window to just add more light and starting to move away from the shutter. We didn't like the shutter quite as much, so I think it remained in some areas. But
Is this an open window, or is this
looks like an open window? Yeah.
something else there?
That's just this perspective. You're actually seeing something behind the window. Yeah, it's a double hung window with a 3-light top pane.
What is that a door to?
That's a door to the laundry room.
Okay. A shared laundry
So
room?
it's a shared laundry room, and that was important to the client that there was some laundry. It's not the largest laundry room, but there is laundry on site.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thanks.
Okay. Kevin, you have any questions?
Yeah. So over the little bay windows in the common area, you've got that eave runs across there as well. How far out is that projecting? Is that another foot, 6 inches?
Can we refer to the roof plan here?
Yep.
I guess my dimensions somehow got lost, but I believe it was 24, 18 to 24, I believe, 24.
And then the tree that you're showing in there, do you have a species yet, or what?
Yeah, I think, well, the crabapple tree was something that was discussed. Again, we haven't fully developed the planting plan as such, but here's our general palette. So some kind of flowering tree. We have the crabapple tree there.
That's just, there's pavers all around it, and then the pavers stop where the tree well is?
Correct.
Other questions?
I have a question. Kevin, are you done?
Well, one more question. So on the garbage or the trash enclosure, is there a reason that it needs to be 6 feet tall? Or is that just part of your site?
5 feet is the minimum for the actual trash enclosure itself. The 6 foot, the 6 foot comes from the site fence, which is going to go basically all around the site, starting here, going all around the perimeter of the site. There's an existing fence located there that we'd like to keep, and then add on to that.
But there's a fence that goes around the site, but you can still walk down the driveway. There's no enclosure on the driveway?
There is currently. There's a gate. There's a sliding gate.
What are you proposing?
We're proposing to open it.
So no gate?
No gate. Just demoing the gate.
Okay. But the fence everywhere else? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Howard?
Yes, elevations. Bring in an elevation here. Or perspective, whichever. The two-story. So, how do you handle these corners? Outside corners?
We are proposing to do a corner trim. You pointed out an error there. These are supposed to be corner trims. So outside
vertical boards?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or do you have the little?
They'll be shouldered. They'll be shouldered rather than mitered, and they'll be hardy plank.
So there's
painted trim.
The hardy plank makes a clip that is metal that turns corners, and it basically preserves the line of the lap going around the corner. So there's no trim there. It looks really cool. I just didn't know whether you would. Yeah.
Well,
check,
I'll definitely
check the website because it maintains the line visually around the corner, and it's just a sheet metal. So when you nail it up, it's just flush to the surface of the lap siding. Looks really neat. And I just wondered because you didn't show a trim there. I thought maybe you knew something there.
Thank
That's
you.
all I have.
Okay. I think as Scott was pointing out, even though this elevation does work very nicely now with the recess and all that, you do have these major window areas that are directly facing into the units opposite. And while it's not a problem necessarily architecturally for us, it just seems like it's unfortunate. And I was just wondering if, it might be possible, say, on one side to just maybe you'd want to just have a small window here, since it's facing the big windows on the other unit, and put your big windows for this unit facing out away. And the same goes maybe for the other side. And then it brings into question these too. You know, if these are living room areas, you want to be hanging out in there or looking out a window with your neighbor 8 feet away doing the same thing. You know, so you might want to look at that. That's
half
a comment.
the distance between Howard and I.
All right. So, well, let's go into comments. Scott.
That was my main comment, and just a quality of life issue. Oh, the comment about the proximity of the two bay windows. Maybe one side has a bay and one side doesn't. And then just on the elevation or the perspective, it just feels tight. And maybe it's just a question of the overhang in that area. It's a nice device to break up the facade, but this area just feels like the buildings are getting too close together. It's kind of almost a Michelangelo photo there. So maybe there's a way to, maybe you don't do the overhang there, or maybe it's a small trellis that bridges the two, and then it doesn't feel like they have to be separate. I think there may be a more elegant way to resolve that. And I think Kirk's point about the upper windows is valid. Short of that, it's a really nice project. It looks like it's going to be really well detailed, and I think the site planning is well done. Kevin brought up a good point on the site plan about the backside of that trash. I think that's where he was headed. Maybe that doesn't need to be a 6-foot wall here necessarily. I mean, it is reasonably set back from the site, so maybe it's okay. But perhaps that's something smaller and more open, less opaque. So those would be my comments.
I don't know if they could go smaller.
For the trash enclosure?
Yeah, I mean, you had it reviewed by Karen Gumtow, right?
Yeah, well, 5 feet is the minimum.
Okay.
6 feet was the recommendation, I believe, for a site fence, for a perimeter site fence. That's
Oh, and what's the height of that one?
6 feet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This doesn't really function as a perimeter. It's kind of a quasi-front yard fence.
Okay. Go down to 5 feet, I think would be good.
If you make any changes to the trash, you'll have to send a PDF to Karen. Make
Okay.
sure that before you come back here.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
That sounds good.
If he just changes the height of the fence, so you wouldn't have to go back to her. But I guess, you know, if you wanted this more open, was that your intent?
I don't know. It just feels like an odd place for a 6-foot high fence. It feels less than inviting. It feels kind of closed off, particularly when there's 4 units back here.
Okay.
There is the side yard walk here, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if that were combined with a trellis over the trash and celebrated that a little more rather than just a fence with a gate on it. I don't know what this looks like, but just visualizing it, it doesn't feel like a proper entry to me. I want to see a carriage lamp. I want to see something there that signifies entry.
Okay. Just trying to clarify what you're after there, but
enhance the sense of entry.
There you go.
The trash.
The trash enclosure is allowed in a side yard to encroach, or no?
So, I think it may be okay.
Okay. Kevin, comments?
Just to piggyback onto that, since we're out there, that area, the little orchard you have out there, it just feels so cut off and removed from the rest of the project because of that fence location. I mean, it's worth talking with Karen again about the trash enclosure, I think, because in the past there's been ways to work with her to make it smaller or less tall. I would encourage you to, as Scott was suggesting, make the pedestrian entry a little bit more dramatic rather than being just a little fence and the gate. And maybe there's a way to add some nice lighting to that, or maybe there's a way to do it so you're coming down through the center of the trees. And maybe you're flanked by that. And then On the elevations, I mean, to my eye, to my eye, and I think it's in the perspective as well, it strikes me as this strikes me as a little odd to have this little eave condition over the bay window and the door like that. It almost feels, and I think you had it where this was coming all the way to ground before, and there wasn't this coming across. It seems like you would see this in conjunction with some posts and some sort of a porch kind of a thing. And I know you're cramped for space in here, but I think that's why it's bothering me. It's neither here nor there. It's too small to really be like a true entry, and it's not big enough to be effective and visually to make that work.
We were trying to respond to the character-giving elements, which I believe was your comment, and I think bay windows might have been suggested, but I probably agree with you in your comment now, and I think that's why we had, our original design didn't try to put so much into one small area.
Right. Well, I appreciate this move. I think that's really helpful to give some breathing room in there. But I think, in general, like this sort of feels odd to me. It's sort of this roof that's clipped on to the side of the building doesn't have a relationship to something else.
Okay. We are limited to we can't have posts coming down into the private open living space. We did have posts, and we're not able to do that, but your point's well taken.
Yeah. Okay. And then, that center space just feels really tight and cramped. So I don't know if there's any other ways you can give a little more breathing room. That would be nice.
Okay. Howard.
I agree pretty much with what everyone else has said. I would offer one more suggestion about I agree especially about the pedestrian entrance to your property. If you thought about putting the pedestrian entrance alongside the driveway, and having maybe a sort of a wider space there, widening the gate opening that's no longer a gate, and see about moving that other stuff into the side yard and planting the area that you now have as a sidewalk or as a walkway. So you come in the center and then you branch out to your various. Would offer that. I think somebody said something about a trellis between the buildings. I think kind of like that is instead of the roof. I think, for example, those little bay windows that are face each other, they should be as small as possible. Just bay windows with little roofs. And so that other roof element, which you have, which is effective, you could just make that just a shed roof like the other side, stop, start. I think the other side it turns a corner, but on the one side it wouldn't turn a corner. And then add some kind of maybe a trellis freestanding that you would walk under through going into that little inner sanctum there. That's not an entrance courtyard, is it?
It is an entrance court.
It is an entrance court.
And I believe the trellis might be not allowed because of the building separation, but I could be wrong on that.
Because if you join the buildings, then all kinds of things happen.
Fire separation and 10-foot building separation is our minimum.
I see. So that's as if it's attached. So what if it is not attached? Is a trellis a building?
Trellis is an attachment.
If it's attached, what if it's not attached?
That's what's proposed. It's not attached.
Yeah. The trellis that's proposed is not attached?
There's no trellis proposed.
I didn't see a trellis proposed.
There isn't. No. There isn't.
Yeah, I think he mentioned something about connecting the buildings with the trellis.
He did. And I think that what you're saying, it might present a problem because of fire code.
Right.
Unless you classify it all as one building.
Well, maybe when I'm using the wrong word.
Then we have to do ADA.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Good point.
I'm using the wrong word. What I mean is an independent, separate,
independently supported
harbor.
Yeah,
Pergola
freestanding,
harbor.
so it's not connected, so it doesn't trigger the joining of houses and the fire code and all the rest. I don't know, but it would be worth checking if you wanted to have a little relief there. Something that does the job of tying the buildings together, but isn't the building.
Okay.
Anyway, suggestion. So it's a very nice project, very nicely detailed, and actually is pleasing to the eye.
Where do you want to be?
I just wanted to look at that front. This one. Is this how is the siding changing there?
Currently, no.
It's not changing.
Currently,
You're just showing us what's there.
Correct.
Because we asked to see it, or because you thought you might need it?
It was actually asked of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I had shown this elevation because this is really where we're proposing to demolish the existing trellis here, and we're adding a trellis there.
Okay.
These elevations were not shown, but now they are.
Okay. I don't have any comments other than the one I remade about windows facing each other. So who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Item number 1, the board appreciates the project site planning and detailing and likes the new common space between duplex A and B. Comment number 2, study ways to enhance the sense of entry for the pedestrian walkway onto the site. Perhaps a trellis, some sort of lighting, potentially even moving the sidewalk to adjacent to the driveway. Item number 3, study the necessity of the roof overhangs in the center walkway between the duplexes, as it creates a sense of impingement the way in the current design. Item number 4, study the adjacencies of the windows between the two duplexes. Perhaps alternate window locations may increase unit privacy. I'm going to leave out the bit about the trellis.
Okay. Does anyone want to second that motion?
I'll second.
So the motion's for what?
Definite.
Indefinite, I guess.
Indefinite continuance?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
full for the next 2 weeks, so it'll have to be indefinite.
You're full for the next 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the next session.
Okay. And is it back to full board or consent?
This will be back to full board, I believe. That'll be my motion.
And
we don't need to mention the suggested sheet metal corner angles that match the lap of the shiplap. We don't need to mention that.
Is the finished material actually metal?
Yes.
Or is it?
It's
okay.
sheet metal, the corners, the little
You can
jackets.
paint
They painted the same color as the siding.
I would entertain the idea of consent. I don't know. It feels like there's enough here that it's probably full board to me.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Is this, are you giving it project design approval?
For me, I'd like to see what happens here and here. But if others feel that it's ready for design approval, I can head that direction.
So isn't PDA means he comes back anyway with in progress, with final and all that?
Well, for final, yeah, but he's locked in terms of the design at that point. It's a question of detailing it.
I see.
And would you require more developed landscape plans, or is this
For final, you
for
would need
final?
it. For final, you would.
Yeah.
Heavy
Get
irrigation.
final. Just still not clear whether you're granting PDA or not.
I'm not granting PDA. If the board, if the preference of the board is a 3-to-1 PDA, then I'll go along with that.
PDA?
I think either way. I mean, I think if he comes back, it's probably going to get final approval, in one visit, whereas this just PDA is just a technical thing. PDA means we can no longer
tweak the design.
Yeah.
Can we get final approval without getting PDA today? Or, I
No.
mean, so it'd be a minimum of 2 more ABR meetings then, after this one?
No, because, well, Mr. Chairman, could you answer that question?
Yes, I can. So it is possible to get both PDA and final on the same meeting.
Right.
It is possible, yeah. It's not often, doesn't often work that way, but it is possible. And it's a little bit of a risk for you, because you, without PDA, it's still a question mark. You're going to come back with some changes.
Right.
And if you don't have PDA, you don't know if you're going to get PDA next time.
Right.
So I think this is a critical point, really. We need to decide whether it's just some tweaking of window locations and a trellis, some enhancements here and there, or are we asking him to do something more?
Right, and we can't fully develop our landscape plans without PDA, and I think that's a pretty,
most people
in terms of the
wouldn't want
lead
to.
time,
Yeah.
because it might change, and we'll have to revise everything.
Personally, I think it's ready for PDA with, and my concern really has to do with the ones we mentioned about the roof lines and the windows facing each other in there. And it's really more internal to the usability of those units. It's not really affecting the public.
Can I comment on a design?
No, let's get through this.
All right, I'll be generous. I'll change my motion to PDA with those items on consent.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
On consent.
if you're going to grant PDA, then we need the 15183 to be read into the record.
Okay.
So the Architectural Board of Review finds that the project qualifies for exemption from further environmental review under CEQA guidelines, Section 15183, based on city analysis and CEQA certificate of determination on file for the project. And
Thank you for reading that. Can we just include that without rereading it?
That's exactly why I did it.
Great.
And then we request, staff requests the ABR include a, quote, a requirement for a recorded conditions agreement in this motion, then, if you're going to grant PDA. And that is for the, AUD projects in the, let's see here. Ownership in the high density and priority housing overlay areas require an annual resident survey. So it's prepared, but I need a legal description, and I sent you an email, or I think it was you an email on April 20th requesting that legal description. So as soon as I get that, this will be ready to go. But we would just request that the motion include a requirement for a recorded conditions agreement. So we'll just add that.
All right.
Okay?
I can follow up with you on that.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
So, so the motion is for PDA to come back on consent for final.
You think consent?
Yes, consent.
That's the motion. I'll second it.
Consent.
So I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
I did.
Well, he took it away.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wouldn't want to do that. Yes.
I got to do something here.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. One opposed.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
You proposed.
So we're going to keep this one, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, thanks a lot. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Also that.
So you know what you have to do? You have to come back, make a few changes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So I need this,
So this is the last item of the evening, number 6, 927 East Ortega Street. It's a continued item. We reviewed it last time. Proposal to construct a new 467 square foot, one-story detached accessory unit and uncovered parking space to the rear. Actually, it's covered. To the rear of a existing 943 square foot, one-story single-family dwelling on a 5,000 square foot parcel.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome back.
Thank you. And I'm Andreas Blooms.
And Shannon Blooms.
And so these are the revised plans. We addressed the comments and concerns for the last meeting.
Why don't I read those off one at a time, and then we can just go and look at them.
Great.
The board recommends study of the garage level with a preliminary survey done to confirm positive runoff to the street from the driveway.
Yeah, so we had Shaw Concrete come out. They do concrete work, and they confirmed that the drainage situation is not along the length of the driveway, but towards the house and away from the driveway. So if we replace the actual center section of the driveway, the runoff from the garage is not a problem, if that makes sense.
All right.
It was the runoff in this direction and that direction was the problem. This was
Okay.
absolutely fine.
Okay. So restudy the relationship between the carport roof and the garage roof.
Yeah, so this was an interesting one. I think we came up with a really good solution. Would elevations
Yeah.
probably be the
Yeah.
best? Yeah. So the challenge was we had to maintain a slope on the carport, but that slope line didn't really go with the rest of the buildings. So what we did was we checked with Dan from transportation. He was okay with us removing the center post from the carport, and when we do that, that's also going to allow us to raise this end of the carport to give us a 2% angle, which is a lot less than it currently is. And then we were simply going to match the fascia with the rest of the house and have that actually horizontally. So we're going to cover that angle with a piece of fascia. That was our solution. So it'll have it's a straight horizontal line. It won't have that gentle slope look.
Okay.
So I really think it helps to soften it because before the angle really, it didn't go with the rest of the angles. So yeah.
Okay. Number 3, clarify with transportation staff to study reducing the width of the driveway.
Yeah, so I spoke with Dan about that, and yeah, so the concern was trying to keep the citrus tree in the front and also adding some green space, and he is okay with us. Let's see here, what do we have? What's the easiest one to see?
Probably want to look at the landscape.
Yeah.
Is my guess.
A102.
Actually, that's parking.
I think this will be fine, yeah. So he was okay with us reducing the width of the driveway by 4.5 feet here, which will allow us to keep that orange tree. And it'll give us a 15.5-foot entrance into the property. Here at the carport, we're removing the center post, which is going to allow for a better door swing and allowing us to have some green space. It's going to get thinner here towards the middle of the driveway, but we'll be able to have plantings the whole distance. He was fine with this. And then in the corners of the...
Why would you bump out like this right in this area? Is there a reason that bumps out like that instead of just going straight?
This was kind of in response to, I was asking him, how wide can we go? And he was just concerned with maneuverability. And so he said that, he clarified with me that it was okay at the carport to go to the pillars, but, and maybe I need to clarify with him again, but I was left with the impression he wanted a little bit of a wider berth. So.
For this car as it's backing out.
Yeah. And
seems strange.
Yeah, that may have been a misunderstanding on my part.
Okay. Number 4, provide landscape plan.
Yeah, so basically, of course, keeping the citrus tree and adding plantings. We're also in the corners of this bump out in the house, we're leaving space open so that we can have, we call it, I think, lavender here, but some drought tolerant buffer. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then a flagstone pathway that leads to a flagstone, like a patio or, yeah. And then having that spotted with different drought tolerant plants, some succulents and things like that. On the front here, and the front house is private outdoor space, a flagstone patio, and then we call out the smaller maple trees. I think we have a coral skin and Japanese maple, get some shade. And
Those are existing or proposed?
They're proposed. Yeah.
Okay.
We just like the way they look.
Privacy, since that's going to be a bedroom.
Are we missing a key for the call-outs, or is there a key somewhere?
Yeah.
It didn't print. Okay.
Yeah, it just didn't show up.
I'll have to reprint that.
Okay. Let's see here. Study the relief from the paving and the edges along the property line, especially along the house, even if only a small buffer area along the property line, such as an in-grade planter buffer between the... I think you've already covered that. That's
yeah.
We have to. Study providing charm-giving cottage elements such as wood siding instead of stucco. Craftsman, including shutters and wainscoting.
So we've looked into a bunch of different options there, and to get that feel, one of the big changes we made is we actually, if you look at the elevations here, which one am I looking at? Let's see. From the front of the house, that would be here. Yeah. So we've moved the front door. So the front door is now facing the street, and this allows us to have, I think, a much more craftsman feel. We're going to have a nice wood door here. We've added the shutters around the windows facing the street.
Looks like there's a little bit of a graphical.
Yeah, I see that right there.
Yeah,
So we
it's
just
supposed to be that style door.
this door here will be the same as the front door, and then the wood posting around the patio. We're adding lighting here. So we added these craftsman style lights both to the garage and to the front of the house, and that will match the same light that will be at the entrance to the second unit and the back of the property. So also, you see on the side of the house, the ones that are visible from the street, we will add the shutters too. We did look into different, we originally called out stucco, and we did look at some other finishes. We'd really, for financial reasons if nothing else, and we also like the look of it, we'd like to stick with stucco if the board would allow, but we did look at some other options as well.
And we want to do the smooth face stucco. We don't want
smooth
any
plaster.
Yeah.
Okay. So, is this enough of an overhang over that door to protect the door?
That's a good question.
Is that roof edge?
Which overhangs then?
The front door at the street. I'm just wondering if there's enough of an overhang there on the rig.
It's about 18 inches. So I don't know. Yeah, currently it's about 18 inches.
Because that's existing.
Yeah. Okay, well, that'll talk about that. So let's see, study the uniformity of the window treatments, provide details. That can come later. It doesn't have to be in this set if you don't have it.
We did do
Yeah, just kind of a typical window treatment, because we want to do some kind of wood trim around the windows to accent it, and then we'd just have the stucco come right up to it.
So since some of the windows, are going to remain in existing, it's hard to set some of them in more, without having to move all of them. But I think the wood will attach, to the framing, and then we'll do the stucco up to that. It should frame it really nicely.
Yeah. And then with the added shutters on some of them.
Yeah.
As well.
Okay. Provide exterior lighting details. That also can come later, but you've got something to show us. Wow.
I don't know if this is correct, but
I just have a printout of
I may have taken that way too literally. But this is the lighting that we were going to use.
Too literal.
Yeah. These are the ones we want to use.
Currently we have two of those.
We have two of them, and
so we'd like to reuse them and then continue.
All right. Hardscape details, I see you've got one there.
Yeah, just showing just the typical paving, because we would have 2x3 pavers, and then we want to fill it with DG in between, and then they'd have to put some sand down and some gravel and to let the water percolate.
And then flagstone for the walkway and for the two patios. And the walkway, of course, will be naturally kind of flagstone set further apart, and the patios will be, on a cement slab of type,
Study to define the entrance to the second rear unit with a pathway.
Yeah.
Site plan?
Or even elevation might be good to show, but we added the little bit nicer walkway here before this was just solid.
Yeah, we didn't have anything.
Adding the landing for the door.
Yeah, more dense here, and then at the entry, which is down there.
Right here, we experimented with like an overhang over the door or something, but it seemed like it would just feel too tight. So what we did was we added a more craftsman style door. Again, lighting right back here, and I think the window was there before, but
we initially put in a door with some side lights, but then
once you look at the interior space, the actual door swing would take up majority of the,
Mhm.
of the
Usable
interior
space, yeah.
So,
What's
so
inside here?
That's actually the garage.
existing
Oh, that's the existing garage. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why the plate height's so low. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it. That's it. So we'll open a public comment. See no one, we'll go to questions from the board. Howard, do you have any questions?
What is the plate height of the existing carport that you are, garage that you are keeping?
Currently, I'm wondering if it's called out on the elevations. 'Cause I think, yeah, because I think now, I think we would be lifting it up 2 feet.
Really?
I think he's asking the garage, not the
garage,
not the
roof.
carport.
He's wanting to know what the
Oh, the
plate height at the
garage,
garage.
not the carport. I'm sorry. Oh, I think it's called out right there. It's like 9,
Oh, yeah.
10? Yeah.
Well, that's to the peak.
Oh, that's to the peak.
9, 10 to the peak.
Plate height.
It looks pretty low, Howard. It looks like you have to scale it.
Yeah, that's where I'm leading.
Yep.
7-ish.
So I don't have a scale with
But
me, but
that's
it looks to me
existing.
like it's maybe less than 7 feet. And when you come down like this, you know, you're gonna have a way in, barely. I don't know how you're gonna get your car in
Well, it's existing.
below 7 feet.
It's existing.
It's currently existing.
Okay.
But it is,
It is low, but I think it's probably, I think when you stand next to it, it's probably a couple feet.
we're talking about the opening in the garage, or
Where
the roof hits.
Yeah, where it comes
Yeah, I
from.
mean it's over 7 feet because it's more than the foot over my head, but it's low.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, if it's over, because I noticed that the ground steps down here, from the backyard.
Correct.
It steps down, looks like it steps down almost a foot, 13 inches.
The side of the property where the entrance for the secondary unit is, that is at that lower elevation, and the opposite side of the garage is higher.
So if it's low on the low elevation, it's
Yeah.
even lower on to the backyard.
The west elevation is the lowest side, and the east
Right.
elevation is the higher side. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so what is the carport roof made of?
Right now, it doesn't have a roof, but we want to match the roof of the house.
Just the
Asphalt shingles?
Yeah.
The shingle roof.
So I'm with the flat part, the carport.
Yeah, there's no roof
So
currently.
It looks to me like it's a flat roof.
Well,
They flattened it out.
yeah, we raised
Well,
it.
it's flat, it's dead flat, it's not pitch.
Well,
It's because it's a fascia
fascia
piece that you're seeing right there.
But behind it would be a 2% slope.
The face is hiding the slope.
Because we were trying to get it so it didn't look so funny, because before it was
Okay, so
sloped much more.
that's not gonna work that way, you'll see. You get into
Yeah.
the depth of your pieces and the slope, this is gonna get bigger. The fascia is gonna get bigger. Just curious,
Yeah.
okay?
Other
Well,
questions?
that's all the questions I have.
Okay. Kevin?
No questions.
Okay. Scott?
Is there a reason why this plate is so high on the little addition? It looks like it's up at about 11 feet or so.
We just wanted a larger, ceiling height inside.
Okay.
Because we're restricted to the square footage, having a taller ceiling makes it feel more open.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That was it.
Okay. I don't have any questions, so comments. Howard?
Actually, coming together, nice little project, very charming. I do see little technical things you might want to work out. I think I didn't quite follow the conversation about a cover over the front entry. But I think that really should be covered.
Okay.
Number 2, in the elevation east, unit A and B, you have a sloped roof, and then it goes up to this 12-foot plate height or whatever. It would be really, I don't think I'm going to sleep well with that window not being centered under the ridge.
Okay. Okay.
Looks a little like
I
someone
agree, I
bent the
agree.
neck.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's a
I
small
have
adjustment.
probably a half a dozen small things like that, but that's all I'll say at the moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin?
Yeah, I had the same reaction to that elevation, the east unit A and B elevation. And it does strike me as that how it pops up to 12 feet at the plate there. It gets really narrow proportionally and kind of a little odd. So I think that needs a little study.
The east elevation?
East elevation of the new unit.
I think what you're saying is consider lowering the plate height.
Yeah, or
In the guest house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So plate height?
You were here last time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
Yeah, so lowering the plate height or studying the proportion of that elevation. And I agree the front door could use a little cover over the top of it. And other than that, I do wish there's a way to get a little bit more landscape buffer along the driveway. It seems tight already. You're parking right up against the house as is. It seems like there's an opportunity to get a little bit more landscape in there, so you can get something a little bit bigger, more scale. You're gonna be limited to what you've got there, maybe vines or whatever. But that's it.
Okay. Okay, agree with all the comments about the front door, the side yard, landscaping. And then the proportions of this side and this side, they look a little almost dollhouse-like. It's something to do with the height of the roof. It's very odd looking. And maybe that's easily remedied by lowering the plate height, say, a foot. In a very small space and a very high plate, sometimes it almost feels like a well. It's not necessarily a positive thing. So you...
Lower the plate height of what?
The
unit in the back.
Unit in the back. But I mean, I think it has potential to be a kind of a cute addition. You can particularly see it here in this elevation. It feels ungainly high compared to the existing garage, which has a rather low plate height. Those are my comments. Thank you. Okay.
Now, I see what you did with the carport roof, and I guess it's okay. But as Howard was saying, with the framing members that you need to span this length, they're going to be at least a 2x10 if you don't use timbers, and even 4x10. That's still quite a long span. So then to hide it with a fascia, that's going to have to, and then you're sloping 1/4 inch per foot just to get the water out. So you're going to need a fascia that's 14, 16 inches high to hide that.
Okay.
So I don't think that's really going to work, as Howard was saying. But
unless you built the steel and the wood fascia.
Right. Yeah, which you probably don't want to go to that expense.
It's currently very thin, but yeah.
Well,
but that might not be good.
But is that existing?
Yeah,
The carport's existing.
The carport's existing.
But from comments last time, you had given recommendation to study it because it was at a larger slope. It was just like a shed slope, and it kind of cut the view from the street.
So you're thinking about rebuilding it?
Well,
or just hiding it, lifting it.
Literally just lifting
that side.
This side so that we don't have, I don't know what the exact angle is now.
Well, but see, that'll create problems for you because...
Yeah. I mean, we'd prefer to, I guess, leave it as is and just remove that center post.
I don't think I really understood that it was existing. I thought it was being added.
Okay.
And if you try to modify it in any way, you're going to have to rebuild it. Structurally, the city will say, no, it doesn't meet current codes, it doesn't meet earthquake codes, it'll fall over.
Yeah.
So then you'd have to rebuild it, and then it's going to look very different. So I guess, I'm sorry, the last time I didn't understand that. Is that, no, that's
the back.
Patio.
That's the back.
I think maybe next page.
Just wondering if there's another shot, clearer shot of it. That's it right there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, in that case, I don't think you should try and put a face on it myself. But
Just leave it as.
just leave it as it is, yeah.
I have another little comment.
Okay.
What are your windows? Are they, you say they're wood sash, wood clad?
No, they'll
Vinyl.
be vinyl. They're matching what's already there.
Okay, and so this one window I'm looking at, this is again the east elevation of unit A and B. And I see a window that looks to me like 3 by 4, 3 feet wide by 4 feet high. Maybe 3 by 4 by 3 by 3.5. So it's divided up into 4 lights by 4 lights. And if you start subtracting for the sash material and the mutton bars, your lights are going to be this big. I wonder, and you have a lot of windows like that. And then next to those windows, which are divided up into multi-lights, you have a back door with a ladder type panels, nice, relaxed, going in. But the other ones don't seem consistent with that. So I would ask you to study your fenestration to get those so they look like they belong to the same family.
And you might want to reduce the number of breakups. It just might
Yeah,
look
'cause
better.
This is existing, the back door. And then,
Yeah, that one's fine.
Yeah.
But these look
So
really tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like a modeling
Are
component.
all the
we'll pull it
windows,
Right.
are all the windows vinyl
Yeah.
in the building?
Except for,
There's
there are some that are
older
old aluminum.
frame, those are
Yeah.
single pane.
Single
And
wide.
those are the
those
ones
are
that
the ones
we're
we're replacing.
replacing.
So we couldn't talk you into metal clad wood sash?
Maybe if we're replacing all of them. But
Here's the other thing I would say about my comment about the overhang at the front doors. It looks to me like it's at least 18 inches.
Yeah, I think it is.
And that seems to me to be plenty deep to cover a door there. So I cancel my comment. That was a question comment I brought up. It's not a,
We're not in a motion yet.
Okay.
Howard did make that comment though. So who would like to make a motion then?
Sure.
And I'll
make a motion.
just add one other thing. You know, we looked at this last time, and we didn't have a problem with the height in the
This
back.
is the first time I've seen it, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was just 2 weeks ago, and if we were going to make a comment about that, we should have made it last
Well,
time.
if
but
everyone likes it the way it is, then let's not.
I'm
mess
okay with it. I decided last time I was okay with that height.
Howard and Kevin, you guys are okay with the height of
Height of what?
the
Unit in the back, plate height.
I agree. It's a strange proportion there. And, you know, the same comment about centering this window kind of, these two are like pushing right to the edge. I mean, you've got like a stud and a trim piece. But I would think about lowering that so that maybe the low slope and the high slope kind of come off each other.
On the other hand, it's not affecting anyone. As you can see from the photographs, you won't be able to see it from the street. It's not an intrusion on the neighbors.
So I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Consider lowering the plate of the rear unit. And then on the east elevation, center the window on the gable. And you're keeping the existing carport as is, so that doesn't change. What was that? Strike that. I was noting that they're keeping the existing carport as is, so no changes are proposed there.
And you're going to have to put that post back in. Otherwise, the same deal, they'll make you change the whole thing, rebuild it all. You try and take a post out.
Okay, thank you.
Explore increasing the depth of the landscape along the drive aisle. It actually would be nicer. And then study the fenestration mutton breakup of the windows. I don't think there was anything else, was there?
Can I ask, I know that you've decided that you don't like the covered entrance because the eave overhangs 18 inches. But that eve is also 12 feet in the air. And so, I mean, these people are going to walk up 2 steps onto this wooden porch, and it's going to be pretty bald. There's no little arbor, there's no little friendly under the roof or something. So the word consider, which my colleague here is using, I think is considerate, because it would add a lot to the feeling of it coming into your house. Have something down over your head, instead of a little piece of 18-inch eave, 10 feet in the air, 12 feet in the air.
Okay, so you want to second it and add that?
I'll second that and add that. Thank you.
And so what's the motion?
The motion is, I think we're talking, yes, thank you. There's very little here that it can get PDA today.
Okay, so I'm still waiting to hear on trash enclosure. Did Karen get back to you?
No.
No.
Yeah.
So the trash enclosure still could possibly change location, just to let ABR know. And let's see here, Penny pavers. It's just the 15183. Let's see here.
There's no actual enclosure, it's just behind.
Yeah, CEQA 15183. Sorry.
Pardon
me? It's just the CEQA 15183.
Has to be written.
Blurb, yes.
You did so good at reading it last time.
Just put it on recording.
I need to record that on my iPhone. Just
On the
have it
back,
ready.
is this the one on the back here?
Um,
The ABR finds that the project qualifies.
Okay, here we go. The ABR finds that the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under CEQA guidelines section 15183 based on the city staff analysis and CEQA certificate of determination on file for this project. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
I still second it, no matter what you say.
PDA
Consent calendar.
to consent. Thank you.
So indefinite to consent?
Yes. You know what that means, consent calendar? It means you only have to review it, only one architect reviews it, so you don't have a whole board.
ABR light.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And we only need one set of plans.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
You guys are done for the night.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Do you need this? Like,
Yes.
Yes, we do.
yeah.
So we keep
You
one
know what?
copy.
I wanted to tell you, you're going to need a section detail of your permeable paving on your plan, the next set that you bring in.
There is one.
Oh, is there one on there? I looked.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, I missed
It's on the
it.
last sheet.
Terrific.
Yeah.
It's typical standard.
That's great.
Yeah.
Perfect. I didn't know that. Thank
We
you.
keep one and you guys take the other ones home.
Okay.
And then I'll give you a sheet.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to close the meeting with a quote from William McDonough and Michael Brandgart. McDonough is a very well-known New York architect who's kind of been at the forefront of sustainability. He's wrote a book called Cradle to Cradle, which is excellent for anyone who builds anything. And he's, in this quote, he's responding to Corbusier's idea that a house was, quote, a machine for living in. And he says, well, in contrast, he said, yeah, that's a lot of what's been done since that time. He got what he wanted. But he said, what if buildings were alive? What if our homes and workplaces were like trees, living organisms participating productively in their surroundings? Imagine a building enmeshed in a landscape that harvests the energy of the sun, sequesters carbon, and makes oxygen. Imagine on-site wetlands and botanical gardens recovering nutrients from circulating water, fresh air, flowering plants, and daylight everywhere, beauty and comfort for every inhabitant, a roof covered in soil, etc. So that, in short, the building becomes a life support system, like a tree which contributes to the environment instead of just sucking up energy and resources. A life support system in harmony with energy flows, human souls, and other living things. Hardly a machine at all.
not just a little quote.
No.
That's a whole.
We're upping the ante.
Yeah, that is.
And we'll close the meeting.